Chapter 2299. How shameful! Yi Zichen sat on his seat in the city lord's manor. For a moment, he felt a bit embarrassed to look anyone else in the eye. F***ck. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that he would be borrowed from his house. There were no loopholes in the virtual world corporation. He will come, it was his city lord mansion. The very first location was the castellan's bedroom. When Yi Zichen thought about how he actually borrowed the light of his own house, he really wanted to slap himself to wake up. Fortunately, everyone else was the same as usual, except for Xian Jingnan. Every now and then, he would laugh, but he had to hold it in, to the point that his face turned red. Han Qing. Your subordinate is here. Han Qing stepped forward and cupped his fist towards Yi Zichen. I feel like your disciple is too weak. Give him a period of special training, said Yi Zichen. My lord. Xian Jingnan, who was trying to hold back his laughter, had a drastic change in expression. I know I was wrong. Please don't let my master give me special training. His special training is a devil. Moreover, I have already broken through. I just broke through to the 8th stage a few days ago. Roar! Yi Zichen's eyes drooped. You're not even at the star level, are you that proud? Or, do you think you can beat me? I'm only at level 5 or level 6. Xian Jingnan didn't say anything. Han Qing, train him well and let him break through to the star rank as soon as possible. We still have too few star rank experts here. Understood. Xian Jingnan wanted to resist, but he couldn't say a word. Pitiful. Helpless. He silently returned to his seat with his head drooping. He already knew that he had no way to defy the heavens and change his fate. In the future, he would have to face Han Qing's devilish torment. Why has our city changed so much? Yi Zichen returned to the main topic after dealing with Xian Jingnan. It had to be said, over the past 3 months, Yi Zichen's city had undergone earth-shattering changes. Now, his city had reached a certain scale, but it still couldn't compare to the previous village. At the very least, it was no longer in a tattered state. More importantly, the grandeur of the city. It might not be as large as the novice village, but Yi Zichen had a feeling that if it continued to develop, his city would become a true city. My lord. In the center of the hall, City General Jin Jiuqi, who was clad in heavy armor, walked up and cupped his fists. While you're away, this subordinate has been gathering resources in the city. During this period, this subordinate has also recruited some subordinate. How much? Yi Zichen asked. 70,000. Jinjuki replied. So many. Yi Zichen was shocked by the number. Sir, there are already more than 3 million people living in our city, Chicano said with a smile. Is that so? In the past few months, the changes in the city were really great. Without his leadership, these people were actually able to manage the city in such an orderly manner. Very good. Yi Zichen liked subordinates like that. No need to bother. It's all thanks to Mr. Chicano. Han Qing said, While you've been away, my lord, Chicano has been the one running the errands. Very good, Chicano. I'll leave the city to you from now on. City Lord, please rest assured. Chicano didn't refuse at all and agreed so readily. If someone was suspicious, they would definitely suspect that he was plotting something against the city. Yi Zichen wouldn't think about that, it was a simple word. Trust. He trusted everyone here. Since he chose to work with them, he wouldn't suspect them. What's more, Yi Zichen could see their loyalty. Even though this was the second universe, there was still some game data. Chicano, I'll leave the rest to you. Understood. When Chicano heard that, he stepped forward and even took out a notebook from his bosom. My lord. In the past 3 months, Yi Zichen's city developed at an unimaginable speed. During the time he was away, the city was expanded 3 times. The entire city could now accommodate more than 5 million civilians. Chicano's report. They were all about the development of the city, the arrangement of the city guards, and the identities of the civilians who settled there. To be honest, Yi Zichen actually didn't like dealing with these things. It was fortunate that Chikano could help him, which made it much easier for him. Under that premise, he could just listen to the reports. He couldn't just not know anything. If that was the case, then he wouldn't live up to his title as the city lord. An hour later, Chikano's report ended. Yi Zichen was about to fall asleep, so he signaled everyone to leave. Xin Zhengnan, who was supposed to be liberated, ran like a monkey. However, before he could even take a few steps, he was dragged away by Han Qing for devil training. Yi Zichen couldn't forget Xin Zhengnan's resentful gaze as he left. Chikano. Yi Zichen called out to Chikano after everyone left. City Lord, Chikano replied. You're the acting City Lord from now on. You also know that I don't really care about these formatting issues, so there's no need to be too reserved. Yi Zichen smiled. City Lord, this is you being lenient, but it definitely isn't a reason for us subordinates to do as we please, Chikano replied with a smile. This subordinate has already made a mistake due to being lenient. I don't want to do it a second time. I feel like this is better. Huh? Yi Zichen didn't really understand Chikano's words. Alright. Then, he shrugged and didn't insist. Yi Zichen wouldn't force them too much on this sort of issue. How's the equipment store's business? Very good. Very good? Yi Zichen frowned. The people of their novice village were either dead or offline, so how could it be good? Yes, City Lord. Chikano replied. This subordinate understands your concerns. After that incident, we did lose a lot of business from the deities, but we are still doing business with the villagers. Also, we have already spread the equipment to the other villages, and there are still a lot of deities there. You opened a branch? Yes, Chikano smiled. The smithy from before has also been integrated into our equipment store. Although our store doesn't have the equipment you provide, it can already produce on its own, and the amount is quite impressive. The smithy closed down? Yes. Chikano nodded. The departure of the deities greatly affected the smithy. They sold the shop to us because they had no more business. I also invited them to join us, and they agreed. Good. As expected of the mythical level. The way they do things really makes me feel at ease. Where else can I find subordinates that can manage a city and have a mind for business? Then how much income do we have every month? Do you mean all of it, or the equipment store? Is there a difference? Of course. We have a city and several equipment stores, as well as a smithy, a medicine store, and a general store. You are asking about all of it. This subordinate has also invested in some small businesses, and 3 of them have already started to make profit. Are you asking about? Yi Zichen stared straight at Chikano. Chikano! You truly are a genius! Chapter 2300. Mythical Level Chikano. When Yi Zichen obtained him, the second world already indicated that this big shot had an extremely high business acumen. In the early stages of building the shop, he might have displayed his abilities to a certain extent, but for a powerhouse like him, a tiny equipment shop was still too small. What's more, due to time constraints, he might not have been able to use even 10% of his abilities. 3 months. This allowed him to slowly reveal his talents, and during this period of time, he also began to display his mythical level abilities. Equipment shop, smithy, pharmacy. What was even more terrifying was that he actually invested in a few small businesses, which all started to profit in a short span of 3 months. Chikano, you just said that the city is starting to profit as well? After a brief moment of shock, Yi Zichen thought of the city he mentioned. Yes, City Lord. Chikano's words and actions were like that of an elderly gentleman. His every word and action made people feel very comfortable, and they could also feel his humility. Our city has more than 3 million civilians. These civilians pay taxes to us every month. What's more, our city's land is also being sold, and many of the shops also have to pay taxes to us. taxes. Yizichin really hadn't thought about that. His initial thought of building the city was actually what Xianyuan Xiang had told him. Only by building a city would one have the right to fight for resources. Now that Chicano said that, that was indeed the case. When he lived on Earth, he also had to pay taxes when his income reached a certain amount. How much is the city's income? The city's operations are still in the early stages, so it definitely won't be much. Right now, the city's stable income is around 7 million galactic credits every month. This income comes after deducting the city's normal expenditure, personnel expenses, city maintenance, weapon maintenance, and so on. 7 million galactic credits. It didn't seem like a small amount, but when converted to universe credits, it was actually only 700. It wasn't a lot, but it was still pure income. Chicano also said that the city was still in the early stages of operations. The initial cost of building a city would be huge. It was very likely that the income on the city's books was very high, but unfortunately, the cost of building a city was also very high. If there were any profits in the future, it would probably be thanks to Chicano's help. Under normal circumstances, in the early stages, it wasn't strange for the city to invest money in order to build a city. The current profits of the city were negligible. In the future, the city would continue to expand, and when that time came, there would be even more commoners in the city. With improvements in all aspects, the city's income would be even more impressive, and it would become the majority of the city's overall income. No matter what, this was a city. It would be a joke if he couldn't compare to a few shops in the future. How's the overall profit? Yizichin asked. Overall, the equipment shop is still the one with the highest income. The other shops and a few small businesses don't provide much income. All in all, the monthly income is about 70 million galaxy credit. The equipment shop accounts for 70% of the total income, and the pharmacy accounts for 20%. There's also a part of your special income that I didn't include. As Chicano spoke, Yizichin had already opened the exchange between the second world's currency and the first world's currency. Exchange rate 1:900 compared to the initial ratio of thousands, the exchange rate had dropped a lot. But even if it was converted according to 900, his monthly income was as much as 6.3 million universe credits. I can't even imagine it. Right now, Yizichin was just a small business. He owned a few shops, and a small city that could accommodate 5 million people. Just how rich were the people who owned a life planet or multiple life planets or even a galaxy or a universe? Just the taxes paid by the commoners on the planet. It was an astronomical figure. Yizichin clicked on his personal information. At the bottom of the page, there was a personal information page. The page opened. Although Yizichin was already mentally prepared, he was still shocked speechless when he saw the content below. A long list. There were at least several tens of items. With the equipment shop at the top, it recorded the number of employees in the shop, their details, as well as the income and expenses of the shop. At the bottom was a compilation of data. Yizichin saw that among the employees, the number of employees had increased by a lot, and there were even 2 more excellent-level employees. They should be people recruited by Chicano later on. Yizichin didn't pay too much attention to it. He clicked on the shop's funds page and prepared to withdraw the funds from the first universe for the past 3 months. F***CK. Yizichin was completely shocked when he saw the numbers. 1, 10, 100,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, 400 million. What's there to be surprised about? Bailey popped up. You still owe the Universe Union Bank 100 million or so. This money of yours is more or less repayment. I can upgrade your elemental fairies with the money you have left. Also, you haven't raised that phoenix recently. Don't forget that phoenix also needs 1 million something in resources a day. Yizichin felt like a bucket of cold water was splashed on him. From what Bailey said, his income was actually just barely enough to support himself, so I can actually earn this much every month. The money he earned before was transferred away by Bailey the moment he got it, so Yi Zichen didn't even feel how much wealth he had. 400 million in 3 months. In other words, he would be able to earn 120 million in a year. Even a warlord-level expert couldn't compare to this kind of money-making ability. There were also other shops that withdrew funds. The income of the shops other than the equipment shop was much lower. Many shops and businesses were still in the red, so they should have just started operating. Chicano didn't specifically mention it to him, which meant that it was still under his control. Among the shops, the one that earned the most was the medicine shop. Medicine was a consumable. Although there were no more life potions in the second universe, there were still healing potions like gold sore medicine, as well as some other medicinal pills. In short, they were a large part of the income. Yi Zichen withdrew all of the funds, then immediately paid off the Universe Union Bank's overdraft. 120 million. Yi Zichen didn't even know where the money went. He even paid 5 million in interest when he paid off the overdraft. Not long later, the Union Bank sent a payment notification. Yi Zichen was rather surprised by the payment this time. His gold card's star level had actually increased. At the very beginning, his gold card's star level was 3 stars. Now, it had already increased to 4 stars. Being debt-free, Yi Zichen couldn't help but let out a long sigh after the Union Bank stopped chasing him, then stretched lazily. He closed his personal information page. Yi Zichen smiled, then asked the question he had wanted to ask a long time ago. Chicano, we found a hollow or vein, right? Chapter 2301. After knowing that this was the City Lord's manor, he was able to patrol the manor without any worries. During this period of time, Bailey confirmed that the entire manor was made from hollow ores. Not only that, the guards of the City Lord's mansion also wore armor that was mainly made of hollow ores. Han Qing, Jinjuki and Chicano. They all wore armor made from hollow ores as well. Thus, Yi Zichen was certain that they definitely found a hollow ores while he wasn't here, and a rich one at that. Hollow ores were very expensive. The entire mine could be said to be a gold mine. City Lord is right, Chicano nodded with a smile. I was just about to report this to you. While you were gone, our city has occupied 4 mineral veins. As his voice subsided, Chicano continued his report. One of the 4 mines was the ice crystal mine that Yi Zichen found. The mine was already being mined. The mined ice crystal was purified by the blacksmith, and a portion of it was made into handicrafts to be sold. Due to the special properties of the ice crystal mine, the handicrafts they made were all crystal clear, and were loved by rich merchants and experts. Of course, there were only a few ice crystal mines that were used to make handicraft. Most of them were already stored for future use. There were 2 other mines. One of them was a metal mine, which was mainly used by the blacksmith to forge weapons, while the other was used for daily use. The other was a rune stone mine. All of the mined rune stones were given to Atana to be strengthened, while the cost was deducted from the equipment store. The final mine was the hollow mine. City Lord, it's the appearance of this hollow or vein that allowed our city to have its current scale. The hollow mine is very special. It has very good defensive abilities. After mining the hollow mine, all of the blacksmith's manpower was put into forging armors. Now that our people have armors forged from hollow ores, no one can threaten our city's position anymore. Even though Chicano didn't explain it in detail, Yi Zichen understood what he was trying to say. Hollow mine. He was immune to almost all attacks below the universe level. Right now, among the experts in the surrounding villages, a star level was already a rare sight. Their attacks landed on the armor of the hollow mine. There was no threat at all. Our side is fighting with others, so we don't have any worries. On the other hand, the people from the other factions didn't have armor forged from hollow ores, so they naturally didn't dare to oppose Yi Zichen's men. Overwhelming equipment. It didn't matter how strong Yi Zichen's people were. Even if they were level 1 domain masters, they wouldn't be able to do anything unless they were at the universe level. Right now, our city can already be considered as the most powerful village in the surrounding villages. They don't have any competition with us in terms of the surrounding resources. I have an idea. Speak. This subordinate believes that we can take advantage of this period of time. With our absolute leadership position, we can consolidate the few villages, and then we can begin to compete for the resources in the periphery. Peripheral resources. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes and thought. It had to be said, their understanding of this planet was still too small. Up until now, they still hadn't stepped out of their own territory. All of their activities were limited to the few novice villages around them. If you say the second universe and the first universe were worlds that completely overlap, what they were seeing now was just the tip of the iceberg of this planet. In other locations on the planet, there must be other existences, and they might be existences of a higher level than the natives. Yi Zichen could roughly guess. They were actually on this planet, or rather, the edge of a certain continent on this planet. After all, the Virtual World Corporation discovered this second universe. It had already been several 100,000 years. Back then, Baifeng had said that there were already natives here when they arrived. Several 100,000 years. It was impossible for the natives to only be at the domain level. Then where did those experts go? Did they leave the planet and go to other planets? Or did they stay on the planet and go to a more central area? Yi Zichen was more willing to believe the latter. He believed that the Virtual World Corporation knew this as well, which was why they set up the novice villages at the edge of the planet. They wanted the humans of the first universe to be able to survive around the natives who were slightly weaker than them. Otherwise, using the cleansing plan from before as an example, if their village had a star system or universe-level warrior then what would the result be? Not just Yi Zichen, anyone who came would die. The Virtual World Corporation must have considered this. No experts, Yi Zichen didn't believe it. During this period of time, in the sky palace of the head of the Virtual World Corporation, Wenli, who had 9 snow-white tails, rubbed her head with both hands. She laid down on the bed in exhaustion. It was clear from her expression that she was very tired, as if she had used up a lot of energy. Big sister, the 9-faced overlord walked in and quickly ran over when he saw Wenli's state. Big sister, what happened? Nothing, Wenli shook her head. Some small fries actually tried to break through the spell I cast. The second universe? The 9-faced overlord asked. That's right, Wenli nodded. In these several 100,000 years, the natives have grown quite capable. They actually produced overlords and sovereigns. Their resistance towards spells has become stronger, so it's a bit hard to deal with it. The spell Wenli cast on the second universe, it was absolute obedience to the first universe. They treated the first universe as deities. Since the second universe's overall strength was very weak in the beginning, it was very easy for her to cast the spell. The natives there did not even notice that a spell had been cast on them, so Wenli had it very easy for the past several 100,000 years. At most, she would occasionally. There were a few troublemakers, but they were all suppressed by Wenli's intent. The source of all trouble came from the drunkenness last time. The octagonal table meeting made her think of the Milky Way master. She used alcohol to drown her sorrows, but her alcohol tolerance was very low to begin with, causing the spell to weaken. Even though she managed to stabilize it after waking up. However, the people in the second universe could sense that a spell had been cast on them. When the spell was instilled into their minds again, they naturally resisted. This time, Wenli could not hold it in any longer. One had to know that the second universe had much fewer living beings than the first universe, but that was still Universe 1080. Countless galaxies and life planets. Casting a strong spirit spell on the entire second universe was already a heaven-defying technique, much less over the past several 100,000 years. There were countless overlords and sovereigns there too. Even though Wenli was an ultimate warrior, she had no way of controlling those overlords and sovereigns. Hence, she gave up on controlling those below the universe level, and her situation was alleviated. However, she did not expect the resistance from those above the universe level to be even stronger. She had no choice but to settle for the next best thing. She gave up on controlling those without titles. She used all her strength to suppress those above the titled level. Her forceful suppression was met with a tidal wave of retaliation. One had to say she had underestimated the second universe. Just now, her spirit energy had suffered a backlash. This time, the backlash was much stronger than any of the previous ones, and now she almost had no strength to stand up. Sister, if you really can't do it, just retract the spirit spell. The nine-faced overlord's heart ached. It doesn't matter if they are aboriginals or not, they still have the power of an overlord. The loosening of the spell the last time was already beyond redemption. Aboriginals. They are aboriginals, Wenli said without a care. If I could suppress them before, I can do the same now. They are just some small fries. Do they think they can overturn the heavens? I don't believe it. I want to see how far they can resist. If I can't even suppress a few aboriginals, how can I be considered an ultimate warrior? How can I be considered the #1 illusionist? Chapter 2302. Overlord level, venerable level. They were already at the pinnacle of this world. Any overlord or venerable level almighty had the power to destroy heaven and earth. If they wanted to, perhaps with a wave of their hands, a planet could be destroyed in their hands. Their power was already too great. Even if it was a supreme being in the entire second universe, if the number of overlords and venerables in the first universe was divided by 10, there were still over 100 of them. Wenli forcefully suppressed these people with the mind's spell. There were also many titled beings among them. All right, nine-faced, you may leave. If there's anything, come and find me when I'm done. Wenli waved her hand to signal for her to leave. The nine-faced overlord nodded silently and slowly left the palace. After leaving, she shook her head and sighed softly. Sister, why do you have to do this? Even though they were sisters, the nine-faced overlord did not know Wenli very well. What she knew was that Wenli appeared to be a very domineering ruler, but in fact, before the Milky Way was destroyed, she was not like this. At least, at that time she was still somewhat like a girl. She was not like now, exuding a strong and unyielding aura. She did not show any mercy to anyone. She did not know how long it had been since her sister smiled. With a long sigh, the nine-faced overlord bit her lip and leaped down. All she could do now was to try her best to share Wenli's worries. As for the mind spell, once Wenli made up her mind, no one could persuade her. Perhaps the Master of the Galaxy could. Now, if the Master of the Galaxy was not here, then no one could. Blue Emperor? No. Not long after the nine-faced overlord left, Wenli's brows instantly furrowed. She hurriedly took out a handkerchief with what looked like red flower spots and covered her mouth. After a long time, she finally removed the handkerchief. She was still herself. Only her face was slightly paler, and the red flower spots on the handkerchief deepened. These red spots, they were not the patterns on the handkerchief. They were Wenli's blood. Wenli looked up at the emptiness in front of her. Her palace was actually located under a starry sky, full of mystery and beauty. She looked at the twinkling stars in front of her and whispered in her heart, "You're right. If I had followed your instructions from the very beginning and selected a few talented people, cast spells on them, and had them rule over the other natives, perhaps I wouldn't have ended up like this." This was the suggestion that the Master of the Galaxy had given her. Unfortunately, at that time, the Master of the Galaxy had just gotten married. Wenli was so angry that she didn't listen to Milky Way's advice. She is known as no one could be sure that these natives would become even more powerful in the future, so they forcibly expanded the range of the spell to encompass the entire second universe. She did this so that the Master of the Galaxy could see it. She was no longer the little girl who chased after him every day. She was the leader of the virtual world group. She was the supreme being of the human race. The voters at the octagonal table meeting. It was the faith of countless humans, and it made countless races from other realms tremble in fear. Drink some of the Fox Emperor Wunli. As she wished, she saw the shocked expression of the Master of the Galaxy. She saw it too. After the guy's shock, there was pain and worry in his eyes. It was because of that look in his eyes that Wunli had been maintaining the great psionic spell. It was as if all of this was a confrontation between her and the Master of the Galaxy. If she retracted it, she would lose. She had already lost once, and she had been thoroughly defeated. She had washed her face with tears for 2 years. She had lost her heart. She would not lose again, no matter who it was. I won't lose. When Lee's eyes revealed a smile. I can't lose again. You, on the other hand, are so pitiful that you don't even dare to show your face. I sent more than 70 overlords and venerables, but they couldn't find you. Are you hiding because you're afraid? Or are you already dead? If I'm afraid, I'll really be looked down upon. If I'm dead, don't worry. I'll avenge you. I'll bury those who harmed you with you. As soon as she finished speaking, Wunli's aura surged. Her eyes suddenly turned red and blue, and a white halo that was visible to the naked eye rippled like waves. At the same time, suddenly, another tail appeared on her 9 snow-white tails. Red. Surrounded by the 9 tails in the center. Behave yourselves. If I can't even suppress you natives, how can I suppress this world? Don't cause trouble for me. This is my last warning to you. If any of you dare to resist, don't blame me. I'll take your lives. About 10 minutes later, Wunli retracted. The moment she retracted, she could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. She did not even have time to grab a handkerchief. The blood fell on the snow-white carpet, but that was all. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Wunli squinted her eyes in satisfaction. I still won. Natives were natives. It didn't matter if they were overlords or venerables, so what? Without sufficient universe history, even if they reached the overlord level, how could they have half the strength of the first universe's venerables? But it had to be said, the primeval universe did indeed have a great advantage compared to the final universe. The universe's energy was purer. Otherwise, those natives would not have become overlords. That's why we have to fuse. Wiping away the blood at the corner of her mouth with her fair fingers, Wunli's eyes regained the former emperor's appearance. Looks like I have to move ahead. Wunli twisted her neck. After suppressing those troublesome people in the second universe, her mental power was no longer as constrained. She could already get off the bed and walk around. Her perfect curves, under her lazy stretch, were displayed incisively and vividly. Raising her hand, she took a fruit from the table. The fruit was sparkling, like a star. If this goes on, that old guy will feel it too. Even if he can't feel it, the people around him will feel that something is wrong. I hate those cautious people the most. How long has it been? Just some strange behavior and they are already suspicious. How did they sense it? Actually, I've always been paying attention. Logically speaking, they shouldn't have felt anything wrong. Wunli bit the fruit and muttered to herself. Then, she put the fruit that she had taken a bite of on the table. So troublesome. I really hate such troublesome things. As her voice fell, Wunli waved her hand and the white blanket on the ground disappeared into thin air. Then, another blanket that looked exactly the same as before appeared on the ground. Nine-faced, I've already settled it. Come to my palace to see me, Wunli said towards the outside of the palace. Then, she laid back on the bed and ran her palm through her long hair. Hurry up and settle everything. I'm already getting a little impatient. Chapter 2303. He had to settle down in a corner and enjoy the peace he had now. Or take that step forward. Given the current situation, the production of the hollow mines had allowed Chaos City to have absolute dominance over the surrounding villages. He had to stay here and work steadily. He had to consolidate the resources and strength around the village before thinking about expanding. That would be more stable. However, the situation of the world could change in an instant. What's more, this was the second universe, which had countless sages from the first universe. Only by being a step faster would he be able to obtain more resources. Take Yi Zichen's current situation as an example. He only had everything he had now because he had the equipment shop and the city creation order. If he slacked off now, then he would definitely be left behind. What plans do you have? Since Chicano had brought this up, it meant that he definitely had some sort of plan in mind. Even if it wasn't too detailed, it was at least in its embryonic form. Yi Zichen wanted to see what Chicano was thinking. Then he would make the subsequent decisions. Yi Zichen hadn't been in the second universe for the past few months. Even with Chicano's reports, he definitely didn't know as much as Chicano, who had been here the entire time. His decisions and judgments were definitely worth considering. City Lord, this subordinate actually doesn't have any particularly detailed plans. I just have a general framework for what we need to do for the next 30 years. I believe you can understand that the future is the hardest to predict. As for what to do, we can only make a decision after actual contact, said Chicano. You're right. Yi Zichen nodded and agreed with Chicano's plan. Tell me about your plans for the next 30 years. A full 4 hours had passed. The sky outside the city lord's manor had already darkened. The citizens of the city had also returned home after a busy day. During those 4 hours, Chicano told Yi Zichen all of his plans: the development of the city, the expansion of the shops, and the consolidation of resources. Then, the exploration of the outside world, the division of camps. Chicano told Yi Zichen all of his plans. It could be said that Chicano's plans were very thorough. Even though Yi Zichen hadn't thought of some of them, he still managed to point them out and come up with very good solutions. The only problem is that we aren't strong enough. At the end, Chicano frowned and voiced out the concerns in his heart. Right now, we only have Han Qing, me, and Qing Hui, who just broke through not long ago. Star rank is considered not bad in the surrounding villages, but if we go outside, that's why we need to increase our strength as soon as possible. Yi Zichen smiled when he saw Chicano's worried expression. You said it yourself just now. These are my thoughts and plans for the next 30 years. In these 30 years, I believe that the strength of our people will greatly improve. Also, we have hollow mines. The hollow mine was the main reason why Yi Zichen's men were undefeatable. Its mining directly affected Yi Zichen's development efficiency. That was all Yi Zichen could rely on. The hollow mine is immune to attacks below the universe level, which means that as long as we don't come into contact with the universe level, we still have the right to fight for it. Even if I encounter a universe level, I would only be slightly injured, and not fatal. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes. That's right. Chicano nodded. When Chicano obtained the hollow ores, he was ecstatic. He knew very well what the hollow ores meant. Being able to obtain the hollow ore represented their future development by leaps and bounds. That was indeed the case. But City Lord, we need to face a problem. Chicano spoke up after Yi Zichen pointed out the existence of the hollow ores. Hollow ores are very good, but we can't possibly use them to forge armor for everyone. In that case, we'll use the hollow ore as the main material in the vital parts and fuse other materials into it. The defensive effect could be lowered. It would be fine as long as it was immune to cosmic system states. When we actually encounter a universe level, and we don't have the power to fight for it, then we can consider using hollow ores to forge equipment. If we don't have enough materials, then we can extract them from the equipment we already made. Yi Zichen said. Yes. Chicano nodded solemnly. This was what it meant to correct one's position. No matter how much Yi Zichen trusted him or how much power he wielded, his cultivation was still higher than Yi Zichen's. He knew very well, he was Yi Zichen's subordinate. No matter what he had now, Yi Zichen had given it to him. He absolutely had to carry out Yi Zichen's orders. City Lord, this subordinate will go and arrange it right away. Chikano reported almost everything clearly, then prepared to leave to carry out Yi Zichen's orders. He knew very well, at a time like this, he had to make every second count. If he could be a second faster, then there was no need to delay. Wait! Yi Zichen called him back. City Lord? Is there anything else? Chikano asked. How do you mine the hollow ores? Hollow ores were very tough regardless of whether they were purified or not, and they could recover on their own. Anyone below the universe level was practically unable to damage them. That made it very troublesome to mine them. Yi Zichen's subordinates were all domain and star levels. We use the cold air of the ice crystal ores, Chikano smiled. Chikano smiled. After we excavate the ice crystal mine, the cold air extracted from the blacksmith shop will be transported to the hollow mine area. That was how it was at first, but later on, the smithy directly moved to the hollow ores. The cold air can freeze the hollow ores. After it's frozen, we can start mining. You really have some ideas. Bailey also spoke up beside Yi Zichen's ear. Hearing that, Bailey also spoke up beside Yi Zichen's ear. He actually knows how to use the ice crystal mine's cold energy. I can tell that he truly understands the special characteristics of the hollow ores. Do the people of the second universe already have such a deep understanding of this? The latter part of the sentence was completely Bailey talking to himself. Yi Zichen frowned. He actually didn't know where Chikano came from, nor did he know whether he was a data or a real existence. No matter what, right now, he was working for Yi Zichen, so knowing more was naturally a good thing for Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen nodded towards Chikano, then spoke. Alright, I understand. Oh yeah, give me a set of armor made from the hollow ores you mined as well, Yi Zichen said casually. What he didn't know was that he had been saying that from the very beginning. However, as the city lord, he couldn't be as anxious as those small fries. When Chikano heard that, he smiled, as if he'd been waiting for Yi Zichen to say this. City Lord, we've already made your armor. Chapter 2304. City Lord. This is our equipment room. Under Chikano's lead, Yi Zichen arrived at a storeroom. Within the storeroom, a large number of weapons and armors were piled up. The categories were clear. There was a huge variety. From heavy armor to light armor, there were greatswords, broadswords, long blades, battle axes, etc. In terms of numbers, the equipment here was enough to equip over 100,000 soldiers. In the short span of 3 months. To be able to forge so much equipment, do we have a lot of people in the smithy? That's right, Chikano nodded. Chikano nodded when he heard that. When we took over the previous village's blacksmith shop, they used 30 mature blacksmiths and hundreds of apprentices. After the city expanded, many of the commoners also joined the smithy. Right now there are around 500 people in the smithy, and over 100 mature blacksmiths who can forge independently. The number was pretty much the same as Yi Zichen had expected. Yi Zichen could feel that the blacksmiths here were very skilled from the craftsmanship. He picked up a broadsword. This surprised Yi Zichen. The sword he randomly picked up was actually a dark gold-grade equipment. Then, he looked at a lot more, almost all of them were dark gold-grade, and there were very few gold-grade equipment. These blacksmiths are so skilled, Yi Zichen frowned in surprise. It wasn't like he hadn't been to the smithy in the village before, but the equipment they forged back then wasn't very high grade. Actually, it's mainly about the materials, Chikano replied with a smile. If the materials are good, then the grade of the equipment forged will naturally be higher. We also adhere to the principle of better quality than inferior quality, so the equipment worn by our city guards must be of the highest quality. Thus, you won't be able to see any that are too bad. We have pretty much smelted all the gold-grade equipment again, so the ones that remain have special attribute. That's fine. Yizichin nodded after hearing Chicano's explanation. The guards had to be well-equipped. Being well-equipped, whether it was the safety of the city or the defense of the mines, they would all be better protected. If it was purely for the sake of equipping all of them, if they ignored the attributes of the equipment, then it might cause unnecessary trouble. For example, who's going to wear these defective equipment? Or in other words, if someone with defective equipment was defeated during a confrontation, it was very likely that this breakthrough would affect the entire army's formation. The inferior equipment was sent back to the furnace to be reforged. It might waste some resources, but from Yizichin's point of view, it was reasonable and acceptable. Furthermore, judging from the current situation, the fact that there was so much equipment in the equipment room meant that the city guards were fully armed and well-equipped. What's left here is for the expansion of the defense force in the future, Chicano said again. He continued walking forward. Some city defense equipment could also be seen inside. Yizichin looked at it in detail. All he could feel was satisfaction. He couldn't find any fault at all. He believed that no matter how picky a person was, when he saw that his subordinates had done so much during his absence, he wouldn't be able to say anything in return. Yizichin was already looking forward to it. What kind of surprise would Chicano and the others give him in the future? He was also grateful to the Virtual World Corporation for providing him with these subordinates. How puzzling! How could the Virtual World Corporation not keep such a talent for their own use? City Lord, this is the armor forged for you. At that moment, the two of them arrived at a secret room. The secret room was completely sealed off, and there was a long table in the middle of it, and on top of it, gulp, hollow or armor. The armor that Yizichin had been thinking about for a long time had already appeared in front of him. How could he not be excited? He walked over and took off the equipment. From the helmet to the boots, it was an entire set of defensive equipment. City Lord, your entire set of armor was forged from hollow ore. There were no supplementary materials in the middle in order to maximize the properties of hollow ore, Chicano explained on the side. Yizichin pursed his lips in disbelief. An entire set, all of it was forged from hollow ore? Ignoring everything else, the entire set of hollow ore armor weighed more than 100 kilograms. In other words, the cost of the armor was more than 300 million. And that wasn't even taking into account the cost of forging it. There was also the rest. We did many tests on this armor. Even the full-powered attacks of a star level cannot leave a mark on it. This subordinate is certain that this armor is completely immune to attacks below the universe level. Even the attacks of a warlord level can be reduced by more than 90%. 90%. 90%. That sounded pretty good, but the power of a warlord level was ridiculously high. Even if 90% was reduced, the remaining 10% might not be something that a star level like Yizichin could withstand. It seems like I have to be careful when facing a warlord level expert. However, with this armor, I don't have to fear even if I encounter a universe level expert in the universe. I also have the right to walk in the universe. We also changed the color of this armor. The silver-gray color of hollow ore is too eye-catching, so I specifically told the blacksmiths to pour a red metal liquid on the surface. Now, no one will be able to tell that this is hollow ore equipment from the outside. Also, this armor also has 40-odd small-scale formations on it. It has everything from warmth to ventilation. Chicano truly thought things through. If someone were to wear this armor with no gaps at all, they would be drenched in sweat in less than 2 hours. With these small-scale formations, there was no need to worry about that. My lord, you can wear it. There might be an unexpected surprise. Chicano purposely acted mysterious. Yizichin was filled with anticipation for the unknown surprise to be able to make this calm elder say something like that. Yizichin put on the armor. Although the armor weighed over 100 kilograms, That weight was negligible for domain and star-level experts like them. Yi Zichen had seen. Some people wore armor that weighed over 1,000 kilograms, making them look very clumsy. Just as Yi Zichen was waiting for the surprise, the armor on his body suddenly began to change according to his body size. Not even half a minute later, the armor completely fitted him. What's more, it looked like he was wearing a pure black robe. No one would be able to tell that it was a suit of armor that weighed over 100 kilograms. Yi Zichen was shocked. He didn't expect this sort of change at all. Chikano, on the other hand, was chuckling softly. City Lord, are you satisfied with this surprise? Chapter 2305. Satisfied? Too satisfied. Many pieces of armor were difficult to fit perfectly after they were bought. That was because they weren't exclusively forged. Normally, the forger would forge the same standard. Even if the buyer wasn't used to it, there was nothing they could do. Yi Zichen's current set of equipment, it fit his body perfectly, and he didn't feel any discomfort wearing it. This fit allowed Yi Zichen's strength to increase by 20% when he wore it. More importantly, this set of battle armor could actually transform. When he wore it, he could still feel the weight of 100 kilograms, but from a visual point of view, this was a very ordinary set of clothing. This transformation had a lot of benefits. Although it didn't reduce the weight, it could confuse enemies. If someone came to assassinate Yi Zichen, they wouldn't be able to imagine that it was a set of armor at all. What's more, Yi Zichen liked how it transformed. This kind of transformation was easier for people to accept. Otherwise, wearing a set of battle armor every day would be fine in a war zone, but in the human community's residential area, he might be treated as a fool. As long as you're satisfied, City Lord. This transformation is a small illusory formation. As for the changes in the armor, the old blacksmith increased the molding properties of the hollow ores when he forged it, said Chikano. Yi Zichen nodded solemnly, his eyes glued to the armor. He had hollow ores equipment now. Now that he'd returned to Blue River Planet, he wouldn't have to fear even if he ran into a universe-level expert. Oh yeah, Your Excellency, your armor can actually be upgraded. Yen used insight to upgrade every piece of equipment on you 5 times, but as for the specific effects, you'll have to discover them bit by bit. We haven't worn them yet, so we don't know what the effects are, said Chikano. 5 successes in a row? Yi Zichen muttered to himself. Yen was an excellent employee Yi Zichen had recruited from an equipment shop. Her innate skill, insight, could upgrade the grade of equipment. Of course, there was a certain chance of failure. If it failed, the entire equipment would be destroyed. At that moment, every piece of Yi Zichen's hollow ores set had been upgraded 5 times. In other words, insight had succeeded 5 times. It was hard to imagine that what he was wearing right now was the product of countless times of forging. Chikano, thank you for your hard work. Yi Zichen thanked them from the bottom of his heart. As the city lord, he didn't really have to worry about much. It was his subordinates who did all the work. Not only did they not complain, but they also did their best. This is what we should do. Chikano said, Lord Castellan, please don't think too much about it. Our lives were all saved by you. If it hadn't been for you that day, we would have all died there. It's Chikano's honor to serve you. It is my honor to have a subordinate like you. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Since Yi Zichen had already gotten the hollow ores set, he looked around the equipment room for a while, then returned to the city lord's manor. In the city, even though it was already night time, there were still a lot of civilians bustling about outside. Yi Zichen stood on the balcony of the 3rd floor of the city lord's manor and looked out the window at the city that had already developed to a certain extent. This was his city. It was also the beginning of his conquest of the world. Yi Zichen, I have to remind you of something. Bailey suddenly stood on Yi Zichen's shoulder and said. What? Yi Zichen tilted his head. That subordinate of yours, Chikano. I feel like he should be someone from the first universe. Why do you say that? His knowledge, Bailey squinted his eyes. You have to understand that the second universe is a native universe compared to the first universe. This place is very backward in terms of culture and other aspects. This can be seen from the resources that your city has fought for. You humans from the first universe might think of them as rare resources, but the natives of the second universe might not even know the use of these resources. It can't be, right? Yi Zichen frowned. No matter what, the second universe was a large universe with several 100,000 years of history. Although it could not be compared to the first universe, which had several 100,000 years of history, it could not be compared at all. However, the human civilization on Earth already had that kind of development in 20,000 years. It was impossible for this place to remain stagnant for several 100,000 years. Of course, it was understandable that there might be some resources that they did not know about, or that they had not discovered yet. Humans should continuously improve. Bailey could not define Chicano as a human from the first universe just because he knew a lot. Wise people would be born in any era and any world. If there were no wise people, then this world would not be able to improve. You can't? Bailey twitched his mouth. You actually have the same thought, right? Do you dare to say that you didn't think that Chicano was a human from the first universe? Yi Zichen did not reply. Alright, I'll say it like that. How did Chicano know the name of Hollowmine? Hollowmine is a name given by the first universe. Why did the second universe use this name as well? Coincidence? Also, he, a natives of the star system level, actually knows about the universe level and the characteristics of Hollowmine. He even mentioned the warlord level. He even told you that this armor can reduce the power of a warlord level by 90%. How did he know all of this? Bailey smiled. The fact that he could say that proves that he knows about the power system of our first universe. What's more, his true strength might very well surpass the warlord level. That's the only way for him to understand the power of the warlord level to be able to say something like that. Yi Zichen was unable to refute Bailey's words. Actually, when Chicano mentioned that the power of the warlord level could be reduced by 90%, Yi Zichen had the same suspicion as Bailey. How did he confirm it and produce the data? What Bailey said was right. The culture of the second universe was still lacking. They didn't know how to use a lot of resources. Otherwise, if the people of the second universe knew about the hollow mine, it was impossible for them not to mine it. Several 100,000 years, that was already enough for them to completely investigate the entire planet. Yet, Chicano knew everything. He knew that the hollow mine was immune to universe-level attacks. All of the signs pointed to Chicano being from the first universe. If he was from the first universe, then all of the NPCs that Yi Zichen recruited were from the first universe. Yi Zichen thought, could they be from the Virtual World Corporation? However, the moment that thought appeared, Yi Zichen immediately cast it to the back of his mind. He said it, since he decided to work with these people, then he definitely wouldn't doubt them. Doubt and suspicion. It would ruin everything. Chapter 2306. Everything he had now didn't come easily. No matter what, Yi Zichen wouldn't ruin everything for the sake of suspicion and suspicion. No matter where Chicano and the others came from, he was willing to trust these people. Moreover, he did not feel that he was worthy of the Virtual World Corporation spending so much effort to get close to him. Don't mention this kind of thing again. It's up to you. Bailey shrugged. I'm just reminding you. As for the decision, it's still up to you. Thank you, Yi Zichen smiled towards Bailey. He knew that Bailey's reminder was for his own good. Looking at the night sky of the second universe, the nights here were much quieter than in the first universe. He was very nervous before entering the second universe. When they truly entered, Yi Zichen noticed that his anxiousness also disappeared. Perhaps his anxiousness was just a subconscious reaction. Once he truly entered the second universe, there wouldn't be anything to be afraid of. Previously, he might have been worried that he would run into the purge plan again. Now that he thought about it, the Virtual World Corporation would definitely pay more attention to this in the future, and the network blocking would probably not happen again. As for the person who blocked the internet, he had also been arrested by the Virtual World Corporation, and the results of his subsequent actions had also been announced. Execution. Yi Zichen did not think that this person was the mastermind. According to the Virtual World Corporation's information, as well as Yi Zichen's research, the person they'd pushed out was just a lowly administrator. It would result in the network being blocked. It was also because he had dozed off and touched some keys in the control room that he should not have touched. What a funny excuse. When the warrior-level expert dozed off, the key he touched just happened to affect the location of Yi Zichen's village. This kind of news release. No one was willing to believe it at all. They all thought that this was a conspiracy and that the administrator was just a scapegoat. The Virtual World Corporation was probably aware of this as well. However, they also needed someone to show their attitude. This pitiful scapegoat became the scapegoat for Jean, who was still at large. He also became the signal that the Virtual World Corporation released to the outside world. As for whether the Virtual World Corporation would continue to investigate, no one knew. Yi Zichen had mentioned all this to Shea. Back then, Shea had told him not to worry, that the Virtual World Corporation wouldn't leave behind any vermin. Which meant the Virtual World Corporation would investigate. As for the administrator who had been dealt with, the Virtual World Corporation wanted to use such a thunderous method to intimidate those in the dark. At the very least, they couldn't be allowed to continue running amok like that. Oh right. Suddenly, Yi Zichen's expression darkened. He opened his friend list and sent Su Hu a message. Almost instantaneously, "Brother Yi? It's been a long time since I've heard from you. Ever since that day, your God's folk haven't come again. We thought you guys wouldn't come here anymore." Su Hu replied very quickly. Yi Zichen couldn't help but squint his eyes when he saw the content. "You want us to never come again, right? That way, no one can fight with you for the pitifully few resources?" This Su Hu, the two of them were once partners. At the beginning, Yi Zichen had a rather good impression of him, but after what happened that night, it was a disastrous fall. Yi Zichen didn't criticize his way of thinking. From a certain perspective, his way of thinking wasn't wrong. The Fire Elemental Commander's plan was very detailed. If it wasn't for the Virtual World Company and the Universe Union Bank's reinforcements rushing over, he might have to stay there too. In contrast to Yi Zichen's impulsiveness and hot-bloodedness, Su Hu walked the path of stability and forbearance. The village was seized by the Fire Elemental Commander, but he swallowed his anger and endured hardships. He was a rational person. Compared to Yi Zichen's impulsiveness and hot-bloodedness, their personalities were completely opposite, and they both had their own shining points. "Brother Yi, I don't know how to reply to that," Su Hu sent another message. Not long later, another message followed. "Fighting for resources has always been based on one's own abilities. Even if you guys don't come to fight for it, there will definitely be others who do. Since the resources were taken away, it can only be said that your abilities aren't up to par. I welcome you guys to compete. Competition is the only way for both sides to improve, right?" Su Hu's words were very beautiful. Yi Zichen also felt a message from his words. "Lord Village Chief?" These 4 words were enough to prove Yi Zichen's point. The rights to the village had returned to Su Hu's hands. "Ha ha ha!" Su Hu laughed. "It's all thanks to Brother Yi and your God's folk. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have taken back the village. Here, I need to thank you and your God's folk, as well as feel sorry and mourn for the millions of souls that have passed away. In order to hold a memorial for these deceased souls, I specially built a spiritual platform outside the village, and burn incense and pray for these souls every day." This guy, Yi Zichen squinted his eyes. Su Hu's words were always flawless. Not only that, he actually built a spiritual platform. It didn't matter if he did it sincerely or not. At the very least, no one could find fault with it. Even if the humans of the first universe returned to the second universe and saw the spiritual platform, Suhu's impression of him would increase by a lot. You really know how to act, Yi Zichen sent the message. Yi Zichen didn't wait for Suhu's reply before sending another message. Since you obtained ownership of the village, does that mean that Lord Fire is no longer in the village? That's right, Suhu replied. When the purge plan failed that day, I brought some people to where Little Fire lived, but I couldn't find him. After that, the village never appeared again. He ran? Yi Zichen frowned. Where could he run to at a time like this? The Land of Elements. Little Phoenix was currently in charge of the Land of Element. Although she was still very young, she acted like a little adult, and managed the elemental generals very well. Brother Yi cares a lot about that Little Fire? If you have a grudge with him, then I can provide you with some information. Suhu sent a message. Speak. That Little Fire seems to have some sort of incurable disease, or internal energy conflicts, so he needs a vessel. When he was in the village, he had been looking for a vessel. The reason why he brought forward the purge plan was because his body should have reached its limit. Since the plan failed, he didn't have a vessel. I feel like he might have already died. Incurable disease? Energy conflicts? Origin energy. Before the mature elemental fairy died, she used up a lot of her origin energy, so she was using it to feed Little Phoenix. Yi Zichen guessed that the fire elemental commander must have extracted her origin energy as well. Should I go to the Land of Elements? Yi Zichen muttered with a frown. I haven't been to the Land of Elements for too long. I wonder how Little Phoenix is doing. I'm also a bit worried. Would the fire elemental commander go there? Chapter 2307. The fire elemental commander was born from the condensation of element. From a fundamental point of view, he could actually be considered the child of the elemental elf from before. Because there were elemental spirits, there were natural elements. The fire elemental commander was born because of the condensation of element. Although Yi Zichen hadn't interacted much with the elemental commander, he was definitely an ambitious guy from his looks. Compared to elemental spirits, she was the image of a kind mother. Perhaps it was the kindness in her heart that caused her to fall into the hands of the elemental commander. Otherwise, how could an elemental elf not be a match for an elemental commander? A small commander. He even tried to obtain the elemental fairy's source power. He didn't even think about his own identity. After absorbing the elemental spirit's origin, the elemental commander's body would definitely not be able to withstand that kind of energy. If the internal energy was torn apart, it would definitely affect its life. No wonder Mu-Yi wanted to catch Qingyu. She was from the fire spirit race, so her body must have a very good resistance to the fire element. If the fire elemental commander obtained her as a vessel, she might really be able to help him recover. And white, she had a kind of flame in her body that even the fire elemental spirits wanted to eat. To the fire elemental commander, she was a very good vessel. The last one was Yi Zichen himself. If Qingyu and Bai Sei were excellent vessels, then Yi Zichen was the perfect target for possession. He himself possessed 5 types of elemental spirit. Among them were fire elemental fairies. It was highly possible that the fire elemental commander had forcefully attached itself to the fire elemental sprite and had already captured the elemental sprite in the Land of Element. The reason why Yi Zichen felt like he hadn't made a move yet. This was because he was in a good state at the time, so he didn't feel any energy conflict. After that, he didn't succeed. After returning to the Land of Elemental Elements, he couldn't help himself. Serves you right. This elemental commander was a scourge. It would be best if it was torn to death by the elemental energy. Of course, Yi Zichen did not feel like he was already dead. It was said that good people don't live long, while bad people live for thousands of years. The fire elemental commander was so evil that if he had 18 generations of ancestors, they would probably crawl out of their graves to give him 2 slaps and spit 2 large mouthfuls of phlegm. Such a person would definitely not die. In other words, he would not die a cowardly death. In order to survive, he would definitely put in a lot of effort. Thus, Yi Zichen was rather concerned about the situation in the land of elements. However, Yi Zichen felt like the little phoenix wasn't as kind and gentle as her mother. If the fire elemental commander dared to do anything to her, he was courting death. Although the little phoenix had only been born for a short period of time, the elemental phoenix had a unique advantage in cultivation. When she finished eating the eggshell, she was already at the star rank. By the time Yi Zichen arrived a few days later, the elemental phoenix had already reached the 6th level of the star body realm. These 3 months had passed by. He didn't know what level she would reach. Perhaps she had already reached the cosmic system state. That elemental commander was just a star-level salted fish. If little phoenix spat out a mouthful of fire at him, perhaps it could spray him into ashes. According to what you said, the reason why you are certain that fire guy isn't with you is because no one died in your village, right? Yi Zichen sent the message. That's right. The village had been safe for the past few months. The purge plan was also a great blow to the village, and the village's surroundings were filled with the smell of blood. In the past few months, he had been waiting for the villagers to clean up and rebuild the village bit by bit. During this period, no one in the village had gone missing or died. It was the same. That was why Su Hu thought that the fire elemental commander wasn't with him, or that she had already died. However, during this period of time in their village, then did any of your village's poultry go missing or die? Did you investigate the ferocious beasts outside your village? All of a sudden, Su Hu was stunned. He was just about to bring it up, but Yi Zichen had already sent the message. During these past few months, their village had indeed lost a lot of poultry. At the start, they all thought that the poultry went missing on their own and were eaten by the ferocious beasts outside. But then, more and more poultry went missing. Several families' spiritual beasts that were raised from ferocious beasts also mysteriously disappeared. During this period of time, as the village chief, the most petitions he received were related to theft. The villagers all thought that there was a thief in the village. Hey, I can't be right? Yi Zichen grinned. Actually, he was just pretending to be quick-witted, and said that casually in order to discourage Su Hu from being so overconfident. After sending the message, Su did not reply for several minutes, causing Yi Zichen to feel a bit worried. If it really was as he said, then the fire elemental commander really isn't picky. Is he willing to be a dog in order to live? Approximately a few minutes later, Brother Yi, you really were right. Su Hu, who was sitting in the village chief's office, looked at the corpse of a grassland wolf on the table. This grassland wolf was a spiritual beast that was captured and tamed by one of the villagers. Half a month ago, this grassland wolf was lost. The entire village was in an uproar, because everyone knew how precious this grassland wolf was. Su Hu also used all of his power to help search. In the end, he found its corpse in the snowy mountains. Its entire body was burnt black. The reason why he did not reply was because he wanted to find the grassland wolf and confirm the cause of its death. Our village has lost countless poultry and several spiritual beasts in the past 3 months. We found the corpse of a grassland wolf. The corpse was burnt black and its fur was also burnt. Su Hu couldn't help but clench his head. This means that the fire elemental commander didn't leave their village at all. He was still hiding in the dark. Crap! Su Hu muttered. The village had already been robbed once. He didn't want such a situation to happen a second time. As long as the fire elemental commander didn't die, then he wouldn't be able to rest in peace. Brother Yi, you have a grudge with Fire Guy, right? How about the 2 of us work together and deal with him? Su Hu asked urgently. Yet Yi Zichen also felt troubled when he saw Su Hu's message. If the fire elemental commander can take over the bodies of wild beasts, then it's truly too hard to find him. There are so many wild beasts outside, I can't exactly kill all of them. How do you want to cooperate? I sent people to find his location. You send people to deal with him, Suhu replied. Anyone who saw it would feel that was actually rather difficult. Suhu actually took the initiative. Why didn't you kill him? Yi Zichen frowned. I don't have that strength, Suhu replied. There are 3 other star-level experts beside Fire Guy. I didn't find their corpses. If Fire Guy is still alive, then it means that the 3 of them are still there. There isn't a single star-level expert in our village. Chapter 2308. Star Level. 3 of them. There was such a thing? The Fire Elemental Commander was just a star-level salted fish. He actually found 3 star-level subordinates? After all, the Fire Elemental Commander's subordinates weren't actually subordinates, they were slaves. He used flames to control their minds, to make them obey him absolutely. As for what Suhu said, it was rather pitiful that there wasn't a single star level in the entire village. However, Yi Zichen didn't believe him, or rather, he couldn't trust him unconditionally like he trusted his subordinate. Han Qing, come with Senior Qing Hui. Han Qing, who was conducting inhumane devil training on Xian Zhengnan, received Yi Zichen's message. He saw Han Qing raise his hand and grab a small mountain. The mountain seemed to be at least several thousand kilograms in weight. Dong, the small mountain fell and landed on top of a huge mountain, while Xian Zhengnan, who was as tiny as an ant, was underneath the mountain. At that moment, Xian Zhengnan used his hands to support his body against the pressure of the mountain. When the small mountain fell, his arms instantly trembled. His face was completely red, and his eyes were wide open like a bull's. He was forcefully stuffed to death. Write 30 numbers. If you don't finish before I come back, then do 2 more sets of push-ups. Han Qing squinted his eyes and said. After Xian Zhengnan heard this, his eyes immediately lit up. Then, he heard Han Qing speak again. Even if you finish, you have to hold on until I come back. If the small mountain above falls, then do 10 more sets of push-ups. All of a sudden, Xian Zhengnan's face turned the color of pig liver. He really is my esteemed master. My little thoughts were clearly seen through. Originally, he wanted to use the opportunity when his esteemed master left to push down the mountain on his body, then write 30 numbers and start slacking off. Who would have thought F***CK? How am I supposed to write? I have to use both hands to support myself. If I want to write numbers, then I need to raise one hand. That way, all of my strength will be concentrated on one arm. Esteemed master, stop bullshitting. Hurry up and do it. Han Qing glared fiercely at Xian Zhengnan, then leaped away. Although the mountains were very heavy, Han Qing knew very well that this was not the limit that Xian Zhengnan could accept. He had a very high talent in strength, but he was usually too lazy, so his talent in strength had never been revealed. If this continued, it was very likely that he would vanish into the crowd. He didn't want to waste Xian Zhengnan's talent. Even without Yi Zichen's orders, he was prepared to give Xian Zhengnan a group training. 10 minutes later, Han Qing came to the Castellan mansion with Qing Hui by his side. City Lord. The 2 of them cupped their hands towards Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen nodded, indicating for them to sit down. I called you here so late at night because I have something to ask you, said Yi Zichen. Uncle Qing. Go ahead, City Lord, Qing Hui said. I'd like to know if there were any Star Morning Realm experts in your village? A few. Qing Hui hesitated for a long while before speaking. You also know that the competition between villages is very fierce. If our village didn't have a stellar-level warrior, we would have been annexed by other villages. There are a few stellar-level seniors in the village, but they haven't come out for a long time. Your village has stellar-level experts. Han Qing was shocked. Last year, A few villages even wanted to hire me to attack your village. You also know that I'm an independent cultivator, so hiring me to handle things might be better. Later on, I thought that since your village didn't have any stellar-level experts, I would be bullying you if I came, so I didn't agree. Haha, there are. Qing Hui laughed. Does Su Hu know? Su Hu? The village head? Qing Hui was stunned. Of course he knows. Yi Zichen nodded, then laughed in his heart. Han Qing. City Lord, please speak, said Han Qing. Han Qing, last time I sent you a message at the Qing family estate, you arrived a bit late and were surrounded by stellar-level experts, right? Yes. Han Qing was rather confused as to why Yi Zichen would ask him that. That matter had happened a long time ago, and he didn't feel like the city lord wanted to use it to cause trouble for him. When I arrived, I was surrounded by 4 stellar-level experts. 4. Yi Zichen frowned. Han Qing nodded and said, That's right, there are 4 of them. All 4 of them look very unfamiliar. I should know all the stellar-level experts from the surrounding villages, but I've never seen any of them before. Unfamiliar? Yi Zichen nodded, then spoke up. How did you get here? By force. Han Qing took out a sword. This subordinate used this sword to force my way out. However, when I fought them, I felt that they didn't seem like stellar-level experts. What do you mean? They are stellar-level experts, but it seems like they were forcefully raised to the stellar level. Their true strength isn't even at the 9th level of domain. Do they know how to use fire? Yes. They really are the fire elemental commander's people. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes and tapped the armrest with his fingers. It was very simple to tell if they were the fire elemental commander's people. It was to see if they knew how to use fire. If they knew how to use fire, they were most likely the fire elemental commander's people. What's more, Han Qing also mentioned that these stellar-level guys were very weak, as if they were forcefully pulled up. This Su Hu Yi Zichen couldn't help but smile when he saw Su Hu's message. There were clearly stellar-level experts, but he said that there weren't any stellar-level experts in the village. The fire elemental commander had 4 stellar-level experts, and that was only what Han Qing saw. It was very possible that there were more, yet he said there were 3. So dishonest. Su Hu seemed to be very desperate. After not getting a reply from Yi Zichen for a long time, he sent a few more messages to ask. Yi Zichen received all of them, but did not reply. I thought that Su Hu was an honest person, but it seems like I can't underestimate someone who could endure the fire elemental commander's wrath and take back his village. But what Su Hu said was right. They could work together. Regardless of whether Su Hu was messing around or not, Yi Zichen did want the fire elemental commander to die. From the root of the problem, the 2 of them were on the same side. Han Qing, if you go up against those 4, do you have the confidence to kill them? Asked Yi Zichen. Yes. Han Qing replied solemnly. If this subordinate meets them again, then I will definitely be able to kill all of them without leaving any survivors. You're not making things up, right? Yi Zichen smiled. This subordinate is willing to make a military pledge. Han Qing frowned. Yi Zichen shook his head when he saw Han Qing's aggressive look. All right, I know you have made up your mind. I believe in you. Yi Zichen nodded towards Han Qing, then clicked open the chat with Su Hu. Sure. Chapter 2309. Chaos City. With the Hollow Mine, Chaos City's position as the overlord of the surrounding villages was already unshakable. In truth, Yi Zichen found it hard to understand Su Hu's actions. He should know very well that Chaos City belonged to him, even if Yi Zichen was the city lord and didn't appear in public. At the very least, he should know that Chicano, Han Qing, and the others were his subordinate. That made everything obvious. Why did he still do this? He even said that their village was weak, and that the fire elemental commander's subordinates didn't say much either. Was that necessary? Yi Zichen wasn't an idiot, and Su Hu shouldn't be either. This kind of lie could be seen through with just a finger, but he actually said it. "Alright, wait for my news." Su Hu instantly messaged Yi Zichen after receiving Yi Zichen's reply. After that, the two of them didn't contact each other. Yi Zichen just had to wait for Su Hu to find the fire elemental commander's position, then send Han Qing and the others to deal with him. That way, the matter with the fire elemental commander would come to an end. Yi Zichen clearly knew that there was something wrong with Su Hu. Yi Zichen chose to do so because he was absolutely confident in his chances. Han Qing was a star-level expert. He was also one of the top star-level experts in the surrounding villages. Now that he had the holomine equipment, he posed no threat to those people who had been forcefully promoted to the star level. "I'll just wait and see." Right now, he wanted to see just what exactly Su Hu was up to. Yi Zichen naturally welcomed a sincere cooperation. One more friend was better than one more enemy. But if he really had bad intentions, Yi Zichen didn't mind turning him back into a stray dog. He didn't need to be the village head anymore. His life, he could hand it over. "Alright, there's nothing else." Yi Zichen smiled towards Han Qing and the others after his conversation with Su Hu ended. "Sorry to trouble you too. You can go back and rest now." "City Lord, you're too kind. We'll be taking our leave." Han Qing and Qing Hui left the City Lord's manor. Yi Zichen sat on the City Lord's seat with a solemn gaze. "I still have to go to the Land of Elements." Even if Yi Zichen wasn't particularly worried about the little phoenix falling into the fire elemental commander's hands, he still had to go take a look after so long. This little phoenix was requested by Xiaohua to take care of. Unfortunately, after absorbing the power of the elemental source, Xiaohua had been in a deep slumber. Later, he encountered the purge plan, so he didn't go to see Xiaohua again. They hadn't seen each other for a few months. Maybe little Phoenix had also grown a lot. There was no time to lose. Yi Zichen had no intention of spending the night in the second universe. Although he no longer had any qualms like before, he still felt conflicted when he thought about the purge plan. Yi Zichen gripped the sword on the table, then groped his way out of Chaos City. About 2 hours Yi Zichen arrived at the Land of Elements. The familiar fire elemental energy washed over Yi Zichen, but when he returned to the Land of Elements, he discovered that it was no longer the same as before. There were still elemental lakes around the elemental lands, but in terms of number, it had increased to 12. From time to time, elemental warriors would be born in these elemental lakes. Surprisingly, there were no traces of other elemental warriors in the elemental lake. These newly born elemental warriors also hurried towards the depths of the lake, as if they had received orders after a brief moment of confusion. He did not run into any obstacles, thus Yi Zichen swaggered into the depths of the elemental lands. As he did so, he frowned deeply. There were no defensive measures at all. Outsiders could easily enter the center of the elemental lands. It was fortunate that it was Yi Zichen. If it was someone else, or someone with ulterior motives, such as a fire elemental commander, what should I do then? Just what is Little Phoenix trying to do? Yi Zichen scratched his head and continued to walk deeper. Lil Fire's youth had increased Yi Zichen's resistance towards fire elemental energy. Even without the fire elemental cloak, Lil Fire was still able to endure the heat of the fire elemental energy. About a few hundred meters deep. F***CK. What's going on? Several tens of thousands of elemental warriors were lined up in individual squads of 50 in each direction. At the front of the squads stood many warlords, generals. These elemental warlords and generals were also lined up in the squads to lead their respective armies. In the previous elemental lands, the elemental warriors, warlords and generals were like a pile of loose sand. The current elemental lands, the generals and warlords shouted at the front. The elemental warriors were meticulous like soldiers as they looked forward with their heads held high. Those few, all of a sudden, an elemental warlord walked up and kicked a few warriors who did not stand properly. "Are you new here?" All of you, behave yourselves. The thing I hate the most is leading you newbies. Stand properly. Wait for Her Majesty the Queen to arrive. Then I'll take care of you properly. Don't give me any trouble. If anyone dares to embarrass Lousy in front of the Queen, then Lousy will send you back to the furnace to be reforged." All of a sudden, the elemental warriors who were kicked. They were self-taught. All of them puffed out their chests and looked forward like the other elemental warriors. "It's so militarized?" Yi Zichen looked at the elemental warriors and warlords from afar. He suddenly felt like this was no longer the elemental lands that he knew. The current elemental lands was more like an elemental dynasty. There were no civilians, everyone was a soldier. All they had to do was ensure the safety of their queen. Queen? Little Phoenix? Who? At that moment, the elemental warlord who scolded the elemental warriors reached out his hand towards Yi Zichen. Then, several hundred elemental warriors surrounded Yi Zichen. "A human! Capture him! A human spy actually dares to come to our elemental lands." Yi Zichen was completely confused. "You just arrived, right? Someone actually dared to capture him." All of the previous warlords and generals in the elemental lands knew of his relationship with Little Phoenix. What's more, they had personally witnessed Yi Zichen and White Phoenix kill the fire elemental commander with a single punch. "What do you mean?" The warlord frowned. He had indeed just arrived. "I knew it," Yi Zichen waved his hand. Yi Zichen waved his hand. "All right, stop showing off in front of me. I know a lot of you generals and warlords. Who? Tell me your names." "You guys have names?" That shocked Yi Zichen. He really didn't know that the elemental warriors had names. But then he thought about it. I was careless. Any living being can have a name. The elemental warlords and generals were naturally the same. "I don't know their names." "Heh, you don't even know their names. Capture them." The elemental warlord squinted his eyes. "You still want to scare me? Do you know my title in the elemental lands? Literati Star. Human spy. Capture them. Lousy will take care of you later." Chapter 23:10. Literati Star. As Yi Zichen looked at the bulky elemental warrior in front of him, he was unable to connect him to Literati Star no matter what. No, how did this elemental general know about Literati Star? "Who told you about Literati Star?" Yi Zichen squinted his eyes. Literati Star was a mythical existence on Earth, a star of their Milky Way galaxy. This Milky Way galaxy did not refer to the Milky Way galaxy of the Master of the Galaxy. "I came from..." The elemental warrior was about to answer, but then he quickly swallowed his words and pointed at Yi Zichen with a hand made of fire. "You brat, you actually dared to get information out of me. You didn't forget to get information even after being captured. You're really something. Luckily I'm quick-witted." Yi Zichen was truly shocked by the elemental warrior's brain. From the moment she saw him, she had already labeled him as a spy and wanted to capture and interrogate him. Was he an idiot? Literati Star. What F*** King Literati Star? If old Sue, the real Literati Star, were to find out that there was a hothead pretending to be him in the land of elements, who knew if he would come straight to him and teach him a lesson? Capture him. Hearing that, the elemental warriors charged over. Yi Zichen shrugged without resisting. "You really caught the wrong person. Hey, you're just being stubborn." The elemental warrior felt disdain, then signaled the elemental warriors to drag Yi Zichen away. However, before they could take a few steps, "The Queen has arrived." A loud voice sounded out. The elemental general, who was fighting Yi Zichen, froze, then pressed down on Yi Zichen's head. "You stay here and don't run." With that, the elemental general and a few elemental soldiers hurriedly returned to the team. Yi Zichen, who was completely confused, was left behind. What was he trying to do? Was this considered letting him go? He even warned him not to run. Damn, if he was really a spy, why wouldn't he run? This guy must be an idiot. Yi Zichen couldn't help but look in. At the mention of the Queen, The elemental warriors and warlords straightened their backs and knelt on one knee as though they had seen their leader. They placed their right hands on their chests in unison. "Greetings, Your Majesty." When they knelt down, Yi Zichen saw a cute girl who looked to be around 12 or 13 years old standing among the elemental warriors and warlords. The young girl looked very cute. She had long, fiery red hair that cascaded down like a waterfall. She was wearing a long dress embroidered with flaming lotuses, and her fair and tender feet were not burned at all when she stepped on the ground of the elemental grounds. A mischievous glint flashed in his eyes. She was also holding a magma fruit in her hand and nibbling on it. There were several general-level elemental guards beside her. Any one of them could command an army of tens of thousands of people. However, they were like nannies at this moment. Some of them were holding magma fruits, some were holding magma drinks, and some were like housekeepers with a towel draped over their shoulders and a handkerchief in their hands, wiping the magma at the corner of the girl's mouth from time to time. "This can't be Little Phoenix, right?" Yi Zichen's eyes almost popped out of his head. Little Phoenix nodded at the kneeling soldiers, then suddenly noticed Yi Zichen off in the distance. The moment she saw him, she was stunned. Then, she quickly revealed a joyful expression, chucked the magma fruit onto the ground, and ran over with her bare feet. The elemental warrior kneeling on the ground, Yi Zichen was shocked as well. However, his brain was always so pure. At that moment, anyone with a brain could tell that Little Phoenix and Yi Zichen knew each other. Protect the queen. Yi Zichen grabbed a 2-kilometer-long machete out of thin air. Then, the elemental warrior charged over with the machete in his hand. When Yi Zichen saw the girl's smile, Yi Zichen was certain that she was Little Phoenix. Yi Zichen looked at the girl who ran over with a smile. Before Yi Zichen could speak, "Die!" a machete fell down from the sky. Yi Zichen looked up in surprise, then took out a long sword from his backpack to block the machete formed from flames. "Not bad." The fire elemental warrior smiled. Perhaps he didn't even see the girl's expression turn dark, but he continued to shout in front of her. "Your Majesty, don't worry. I, Literati Star, will definitely protect you." The girl bit her lips tightly, her whole body trembling with anger. Just as the fire elemental warrior confronted Yi Zichen, the girl kicked the fire elemental warrior in the groin. The elemental warrior's sword fell onto the ground and turned into countless sparks. He also tilted his head, pursed his lips and glared at the girl without saying anything. However, Yi Zichen seemed to be able to see the sweat that flowed down his face, which was covered in flames. "You're an idiot, right? Who told you to attack him?" The girl tilted her head, put her hands on her waist, and wrinkled her nose. "Your Majesty, he's a human. I don't need you to say that. I didn't know." The girl continued to frown and clenched her fists, while her eyes were filled with annoyance. "All right, Lilin." Yi Zichen reached out and caressed the girl's head. Only then did the girl calm down, then leaped into Yi Zichen's arms. "Grandpa." "Ugh, dear Grandpa." Yi Zichen felt like he was dealt a fatal blow. All of a sudden, Yi Zichen's arms around the girl stiffened. "I'm already a grandpa. But then again it makes sense. Lil Fire is her father, and I'm Lil Fire's father, there's nothing wrong with that." The fire elemental general, who sat on the ground with his legs crossed, was also shocked. "The queen's grandpa." He froze on the spot with his eyes wide open. "I'm in trouble. I actually offended the queen's grandpa." "Sire," the fire elemental general looked over. At that moment, there was nothing more to say. All he could do was to quickly get this lord's forgiveness. To lead an army as an elemental general, this was a very rare opportunity. He really wanted to show off too much. "It's fine, I don't blame you. Your cautious personality is very good and I admire it. It's just that it's fine if you can be a bit more observant occasionally." Yi Zichen smiled. "Why yes, sire." The elemental general lowered his head, then looked towards Little Phoenix. "What are you looking at me for?" "Grandpa doesn't blame you, and I can't be bothered with you. Remember, this is my grandpa. Don't be an idiot. If it happens again, then go and be a soldier. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your forgiveness. This subordinate will definitely remember. Then, the elemental general returned to the army with his legs crossed. From the looks of it, he was rather injured. Yi Zichen stared at the fire elemental general's legs. His mind was filled with question marks. Fire elemental? Is he also afraid of groping? Chapter 23:11. It was very hard to imagine. A little chick that had just hatched a few months ago, and didn't even have its feathers fully grown, had now become a beautiful little girl. Otherwise, they would say, don't be afraid if a girl is ugly when she's young. There will always be an unexpected surprise. Shaoan was a living example. The 3 general-level elemental guards followed behind Shaoan like nannies. Meanwhile, Shaoan held a magma fruit in his hand. Grandpa, do you want to eat it? After taking a few bites, Shaoan noticed Yi Zichen's gaze, so he reached out the magma fruit. Hot magma juice flowed out from the gap that Shaoan bit. Half a meter away, Yi Zichen could feel the heat of the magma. If Yi Zichen dared to take a bite of that fruit, it would probably melt all of his organs. Eat it yourself. Oh, okay. Shaoan retracted his hand with a giggle, then started to take small bites. The land of the elements had truly changed too much compared to before. It turns out that the 10,000-something elemental warriors that Yi Zichen saw outside were merely the tip of the iceberg. When he walked further in, Yi Zichen saw at least a dozen squads of 50 by 50 people training. There were also plenty of warlords patrolling the area. When they saw Shaoan, without exception, they all greeted her respectfully, Your Majesty. Yi Zichen advanced another few thousand meters. The surrounding temperature was no longer something that Yi Zichen could endure. Shaoan very considerately used his power to protect Yi Zichen. Grandpa, look, I live here. The palace was completely made out of fire elemental crystals, and was made out of the same material as the secret room in the depths of the elemental lake. The entire palace was pink. Little Phoenix skipped over and excitedly introduced her palace to Yi Zichen. Her palace, it was completely built according to her ideas. Actually, it wasn't completely finished yet, and there were still many details that weren't done. Yi Zichen could occasionally see a lot of workers walking around the palace. If you wait a few days, it will definitely look better. Shaoan tilted her head and put her hands on her hips, as if she was very satisfied with her idea. Yi Zichen stood behind her. You did everything in the land of the elements? Yes. Shaoan nodded. Who else could it be? I'm going to turn this place into a dynasty. When I have descendants in the future, I'll pat them on the head and tell them, look, this is the empire that I've conquered for you. Ha ha, it's so cool. This little phoenix was only 4 months old, and it had already begun to consider the issue of offspring. Wasn't it a bit too early? Also, why did her words sound so familiar? Where did you get those ideas from? Yi Zichen frowned. Oh, it came out of my head by itself. Little Phoenix blinked his eyes. I don't know where it came from, anyway. I seem to have seen these before. It's so strange. Grandpa, why do you think this is? Inherited memories? That was the first possibility Yi Zichen thought of. The memories of the previous generation were passed on to the next generation. Or rather, the memories of the fire elemental sprite. Little Phoenix was raised by the elemental sprite's source of power. It was very likely that the memory of the fire elemental sprite had been preserved in Little Phoenix's mind, and what appeared in her mind was exactly what the fire elemental sprite had wanted to do, but failed to do. Perhaps it's because our Shaoan is smart. Yi Zichen patted Little Phoenix's head. I think so too. Little Phoenix shook his head happily, then looked at the palace in front of her with a look of bliss. How many warriors do you have in the elemental lands? Not many, just a few 100,000, Little Phoenix thought about it. Most of them are new soldiers. They're too weak, they don't know anything. Grandpa, what you saw just now was a bunch of hotheads. Normally, newborns will stay in the outskirts to learn. Once they remember all the important things of our fire elemental dynasty, they can come to the capital to undergo systematic training. Hee Grandpa, let me tell you, I have more than 10,000 warrior-level warriors here. Warrior level is the star level of you humans. I'm not bragging, but if I go out right now, then you humans will be finished. Warrior level. That's the star level. If they go out with more than 10,000 star-level elemental warriors, then the surrounding villages really won't be able to hold them back. If it was before, Yi Zichen would have smiled wryly. But now, that's not necessarily true. Yi Zichen rubbed Little Phoenix's head. At the very least, you definitely won't be able to break through my city. Bullshit. Little Phoenix twitched her mouth. Her memories allowed her to understand the existence of the human race, as well as the strength of the human race in the outside world. With her current army of more than 10,000 warrior-level warriors, she would definitely crush them if she went out. However, she wouldn't do that. Her grandpa was a human. If she did that, her grandpa would definitely be unhappy. What's more, she had no grudges against the human race, so there was no need for her to bully them. Her thoughts were very simple. If anyone dared to bully Grandpa and Dad, then she would take some people to beat up those bad guys. Haha, Yi Zichen didn't explain further when he saw Little Phoenix's cute appearance. Their Chaos City had hollow mines. Star level. There really wasn't anything to worry about. Hey Lil, and you just said that warrior level is the star level, then the general level. Generals are all star system level. Then what about the commander? Yi Zichen's gaze instantly darkened. If all the generals were star system level, then wouldn't the commander mean universe level? As soon as the Little Phoenix said that, Yi Zichen's expression instantly turned frighteningly ugly. Universe level? Wasn't the fire elemental commander just a star level? Was he hiding his strength? If that was really the case, Lil and I know what Grandpa wants to tell me, the Little Phoenix giggled. You want me to be careful of that salted fish commander from before, right? That's right. To tell the truth, Yi Zichen was rather surprised. This Little Phoenix really was a little mischievous. Don't be afraid, I'm waiting for him to come. The Little Phoenix twitched his mouth. It's best if he comes looking for me. If he doesn't, then I'll have to go look for him myself. It'll be very troublesome. You want to look for him? Yi Zichen frowned. That's right, the Little Phoenix giggled. I want to see him so much. I was still young when he bullied Mommy, so I didn't have the ability to protect her. Now, I've grown up. With that, the Little Phoenix clenched his fists. I have to catch him. I have to pay him back double for how he bullied Mommy. He owes Mommy and he owes me. Chapter 23:12. Little Phoenix knows everything. Yi Zichen looked at Little Phoenix's clenched fist. A hint of shock flashed across his heart. If that's the case, then she should know that Lil Fire isn't her father, and I'm not her grandfather. That's what my brain told me. Little Phoenix's expression darkened. Then, in less than half a minute, she returned to her mischievous self. It was as if the words she said earlier weren't from her. Since Little Phoenix said that, then Yi Zichen could be sure that the memories in her mind were most likely from the fire elemental fairy. Of course, there was also the possibility that Little Phoenix was lying. However, Yi Zichen didn't want to think of Little Phoenix as someone with too many thoughts. She should just continue living with a carefree smile. Our Lil An is so amazing. Yi Zichen patted Little Phoenix's head. Little Phoenix giggled as if she enjoyed the caress. Grandpa, don't worry. If that bad guy dares to come, I'll definitely beat him until he pisses his pants and make him regret coming to find me. Little Phoenix squinted her eyes and clenched her fist with a serious expression. Then, she tilted her head. But why did he come to find me? Didn't he already run away? About that, it would be very troublesome to describe what the fire elemental commander did outside. What's more, Yi Zichen wasn't clear about some of the details. He didn't even know if he would return to the elemental lands. The only reason Yi Zichen dared to come here was because he cared about Little Phoenix's situation. From the looks of it, her situation was much better than he had imagined. She had someone to serve her every day. She even managed to unite the scattered elemental lands into an elemental dynasty. She was the founder of the dynasty and the queen of the dynasty. Just be careful of him. Yi Zichen patted Little Phoenix's head, then stretched lazily and looked around. Our Queen Lilin, can you show me around your empire? Sure. Little Phoenix nodded with a giggle. In the next few hours, Yi Zichen continued to patrol the elemental lands in order to confirm the situation of the troops under Little Phoenix's control, as well as whether there were any flaws in the defenses. Everything was fine. It could be seen that the elemental spirit had already developed a lot of ideas for this framework, and it could be seen from certain details that she was indeed very meticulous. The elemental warriors' formation. It seemed to be a bit messy, but in fact it completely protected the palace built by Little Phoenix in the middle, without any opportunity to take advantage of it. The number of warriors was also quite impressive. During his tour, he also saw many fire elemental warriors undergoing group training. And what's wrong, Grandpa? Little Phoenix blinked and tilted her head. Although her voice and tone were very sweet, Yi Zichen found it hard to deal with her grandpa. He coughed lightly. Yi Zichen asked with a frown. The commander level of your elemental land must be a universe level, right? Yes. Little Phoenix nodded. This meant that the fire elemental commander was indeed a universe level. Why did he always reveal his star level strength? Even when Bai Feng killed his clone with a single punch, he didn't reveal his true strength. When he arrived at the village, it was as if he'd gone behind the scenes. Actually, with his universe-level strength, he could easily annihilate the entire village. Capturing Qingyu, Bai Se, or even Yi Zichen would be a piece of cake. Why didn't he do that? Was it his body that prevented him from doing so? Su, who had mentioned that the energy within the fire elemental commander's body conflicted, and that he needed to constantly change carriers. Otherwise, his body wouldn't be able to bear the burden. If he was a universe level, then it would be troublesome to deal with him. Of course, Han Qing, who had the hollow ore, wouldn't be in too much danger dealing with him. In other words, whether he was a star level or a universe level didn't really matter. And what's your current strength? Asked Yi Zichen. I don't know. Little Phoenix hesitated for a moment. In any case, there's no one here who can beat me. No one can beat you? Yi Zichen looked at the little fellow in shock. Do you have any commanders here? No, Little Phoenix shrugged. Little Phoenix shrugged. It's not that easy to break through to the commander level. We have a few general level ones here, so I asked him to fight me. I'm telling you, Grandpa, I'm really amazing. I couldn't even fight back against that general. Later on, I even asked him to call a few generals. Hey, it wasn't enough. General was a star system level 2. In other words, Little Phoenix already had strength above the star system level. As expected, Little Phoenix wasn't bluffing. If Little Phoenix was properly nurtured, she might actually become a sovereign. In just a few months, she'd already gone from a little chick to a star system level. If she didn't have the hollow or equipment, Yi Zichen probably wouldn't be her match. Grandpa. At that moment, Little Phoenix squinted his eyes and giggled. How about you fight me? Yi Zichen grinned. No one here dares to fight me, it's boring. How about you fight me, Grandpa? I can promise you that I definitely won't be too heavy-handed, Little Phoenix said seriously. How about it? Let's fight. Yi Zichen saw the eagerness and anticipation in Little Phoenix's eyes. Yi Zichen couldn't help but facepalm. The elemental fairy he saw earlier was clearly a very gentle woman, but Little Phoenix looked like a fighter. Yi Zichen touched his robe. It was a piece of armor forged from the hollow Oregon. Everything he knew about the hollow ore came from Chicano and Bell. As for the specifics, he wasn't sure. Little Phoenix was a star system level, and the hollow ore could defend against attacks below the universe level. What's more, Yi Zichen's equipment had been upgraded 5 times. Grandpa, let's fight. Yi Zichen could tell that little Phoenix was really looking forward to it. Yi Zichen hesitated for a moment. He didn't want to disappoint little Phoenix too much, and he also wanted to test whether or not the hollow ore's defenses were as invincible as they said. Yi Zichen revealed a doting look and pinched little Phoenix's pink cheek. All right, come on. I'll say this first, you have to hold back a bit. Grandpa is old, and my body isn't as strong as you youngsters, so don't make me fall apart. Hee, take this. Little Phoenix smiled, then spat out a mouthful of lava towards Yi Zichen. Chapter 23:13. It came just like that. The sudden appearance of the lava gave Yi Zichen quite a fright. It was as if it was a conditioned reflex. Yi Zichen pushed himself off the ground and jumped several meters before stopping. Yi Zichen couldn't help but click his tongue when he saw the lava on the ground. This was already the core area of the Land of Elements. The fact that the lava could stay on the ground here, all of them had extremely high resistance to high temperatures. When the lava landed on the ground, it actually melted a hole in the rock. One could only imagine what would happen if the lava landed on Yi Zichen's face. He would definitely be disfigured. That's a bit too much, Yi Zichen said. It's a fight. It's not like it's a duel. Why do you have to do it openly if you can sneak attack? Little Phoenix stuck out her tongue. But Grandpa, your reactions are so fast. You're not like an old man at all. I'm not old. Yi Zichen muttered to himself. I haven't lived for that long, I was just saying it casually. Even though that's what I thought on the surface, Yi Zichen still sighed like an old man. No, Grandpa is old. F***ck. Before Yi Zichen finished, Little Phoenix spat out another mouthful of lava towards him. Little Phoenix definitely learned the essence of sneak attack. I'll spit it when you're not paying attention. This time, even Yi Zichen's reflex was unable to save him as he retreated. Some lava still landed on him. The lava, which was clearly able to melt the ground of the Land of Elements, did not even emit white smoke when it landed on Yi Zichen's robe, let alone melt it. How did the magma splash onto the robe? It just slid down the robe. F***ck, not bad. Yi Zichen grinned when he saw that. Little Phoenix frowned, as if she was a bit angry about why her lava had no effect. I don't believe it. Tut, tut, tut. Little Phoenix's mouth was like a machine gun as she spat out several mouthfuls of phoenix saliva. There were no surprises. None of it left a mark on Yi Zichen's robe. Lilin, how can you spit at Grandpa? Little Phoenix pouted angrily. Previously, when she fought with the elemental generals and warlords, they would admit defeat after spitting a few mouthfuls of lava. The phoenix's saliva, which had always been successful, did not work. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes, and the little phoenix's entire body suddenly burst into flames. The blinding light caused everyone to instinctively be on their guard. At that moment, Yi Zichen felt a punch to his chest. Lowering his gaze impressively, it was Little Phoenix's little fist that was imprinted on his chest. Smart. Yi Zichen nodded with a smile. Using flames to attract the opponent's attention, then launching a sneak attack himself. Little Phoenix's brain was still quite bright when it came to fighting. Unfortunately, she bumped into Yi Zichen, who was wearing the hollow ore suit. Do you really want to kill me? Yi Zichen tilted his head and smiled. Little Phoenix stared at the relaxed Yi Zichen, then bit his lips and hammered his fist down. He did not feel anything at all. From Little Phoenix's expression, it could be seen that she had really used all her strength to drink milk. Perhaps she had a very high enthusiasm for victory. Unfortunately, he didn't feel anything at all. No matter how hard the Little Phoenix struck, Yi Zichen couldn't feel any of its power reach his skin. A full 10 minutes. I'm not fighting anymore. Little Phoenix sat on the ground and began to act like a spoiled child. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. I won't fight with Grandpa anymore. You won't even let me win. Was this not considered giving way? From start to finish, Yi Zichen didn't retaliate at all. Don't be angry. Yi Zichen squatted on the ground and rubbed the little phoenix's head. How about this? Grandpa will bring you some good food when he comes back. Delicious. Little Phoenix's eyes lit up, but he quickly remembered that he was still angry, so he turned his head away and pouted. I don't care. All right, our Lil Un is a good boy. Yi Zichen patted the little Phoenix's head. Actually, our Lil Un is already amazing. Is that so? Little Phoenix seemed a little happy. Little friends, he still liked to be praised. That's right. Our Shaoan couldn't even fight back when he was beaten by Grandpa. Isn't that impressive? Also, during the battle, Lil Un's thoughts were quite flexible. He launched many unexpected attacks, and even Grandpa fell for them, said Yi Zichen. That's... Little Phoenix looked up. I have a lot of thoughts. It's just that his attacks are rather simple. His thoughts are clear, but if his attacks are simple, then it might be very troublesome when he encounters stronger opponents in the future, said Yi Zichen. Then what should I do? No one can teach me. Grandpa will go down and bring you a few secret scriptures that you can use. Okay. Little Phoenix seemed to be really keen on fighting. When it came to giving her cultivation method, it made him happier than giving her food. Also, bring me some good food as well. No problem. Yi Zichen smiled towards Little Phoenix. Yi Zichen smiled towards the Little Phoenix, then gained a bit of an idea of the defensive capabilities of his hollow or set. It could defend against Phoenix saliva. Little Phoenix's attacks were also useless against him. It should be said that Little Phoenix was above the universe level, yet he was immune to her attacks. This meant that Chicano and Belly were right. Universe-level attacks shouldn't have much of an effect on him. I have to find some cultivation techniques for Little Phoenix when I get back. Logically speaking, the best choice would be to get them from Little Phoenix. She was the spiritual Phoenix sovereign, and a member of the Phoenix race. The cultivation techniques she found would definitely be very suitable for Little Phoenix. Unfortunately, ever since Little Phoenix said that he couldn't contact her, Yi Zichen really hadn't done so. This was the first time she had contacted him in such a long time. She even told him that the fire elemental commander wasn't dead. Yi Zichen was actually quite concerned about what Little Phoenix was doing. Her current actions caused Yi Zichen to be more or less concerned. No matter what, the two of them had met in the second world, and their relationship was the best among all the people they had met in the second world. She was also the one who told him many things about the universe, and she's coming to the Blue River planet to meet him. I really don't know what she's doing. Yi Zichen shook his head. He saw that Little Phoenix had already found a few warlords to fight, as if she wanted to vent her frustration at not winning. She watched as the warlords were beaten to a pulp. Yi Zichen could only sigh silently. At that very moment, at the docking area of the Blue River planet, practically all of the docking staff had come out, and all of the armed personnel had gathered there as well. They were right above their heads. A battleship appeared in the skies above Blue River planet, attracting everyone's attention. Chapter 23:14. He wanted to travel through the universe. Spaceships were a necessary means of transportation. No matter how strong a human was, as long as they were below the titled level, it would be very difficult for them to travel through the universe for a long period of time. Humans were not machines. They could not provide energy like spaceships, which allowed them to travel through the universe at a speed above the speed of light. Thus, even some overlord sovereigns would choose to use spaceships when they wanted to travel through the universe. Unless it was something extremely urgent, they would not hesitate to expend their own energy to perform a long-distance spatial jump. Of course, the result was that a person would have to expend a lot of energy. If they encountered an enemy along the way, it would be very difficult for them to face them in peak condition. There were many grades of spaceships that could travel through the universe. Among them, the most popular were A-grade spaceships. They had the ability to travel continuously, and could reach a maximum speed of light. These kinds of spaceships were very suitable for weaker people, and the price was also very reasonable. Even star-level and galaxy-level people could buy them. The only downside was, they had no defensive capabilities. If they encountered spatial turbulence or meteorites in the universe, they would most likely perish there. What's more, these spaceships were the slowest out of all the spaceships, and were more suitable for traveling close to planet. If they traveled to a galaxy, then they would have to consider whether or not they should take the local airlines. Simply put, A-grade spaceships were like private cars on Earth, which only cost about 10,000 yuan. They could be used as a means of transportation, but of course that was all. There were other higher-grade spaceships. These spaceships were expensive, which was why Yi Zichen's spaceship caused such a huge reaction when he arrived at Blue River Planet. His spaceship was roughly a Mercedes-Benz, a battleship spaceship. It was far superior to normal spaceships in terms of both functionality and support. Even the worst battleship spaceship would cost more than $1 billion universe dollars. Not to mention a small place like Blue River Planet, it was rare to see a spaceship of that level even in a star system above level 6. Those who could own battleship spaceships were either top families in the universe, or titled experts. As for generals and generals, they didn't even need to think about it. $1 billion universe dollars. Even some of the weaker dukes might not have it, much less those below them. If any marquis or earl could own a battleship spaceship, then they either had an enviable fortuitous encounter, or they were idiots who spent all their resources on spaceships. The battleship landed on the Blue River Planet. The staff at the planet's docking area had already cleared out all the high-level areas and were ready to welcome the battleship's landing. All the managers at the docking area came out to greet them. The owner of this battleship was definitely a VIP of their planet. About 10 minutes later, the battleship landed on an empty space that had been cleared out by the docking area. Thick smoke and dust blew on the people around them. Even so, the managers and employees of the planet docking area maintained gentle smiles and waited respectfully. In the distance, many residents of the planet or those who were preparing to leave in their own spaceships also gathered around, wanting to see what the battleship looked like. One had to know that a battleship-class spaceship was not something that could be seen at a place like this. Warship class, it's really a warship class. Far away from the planet's docking point, the appearance of a battleship-class spaceship had alarmed the highest commander of the Blue River Star. As he flew through the air, he was followed by dozens of subordinates. These subordinates all had important positions on the planet. On normal days, these managers were very secretive, but at this moment, they were all gathered here. The planet commander's eyes were filled with amazement as he looked at the battleship that had landed steadily. Our Blue River Star has not had a battleship-class spaceship land for hundreds of thousands of years. Today's events must be recorded. Also, when the owner of the battleship comes down, be alert. Do not let that lord feel uncomfortable, understood? Understood. The many experts behind the planet commander nodded. They all knew very well what a battleship-class spaceship represented. Such an existence. They did not expect to get the other party's appreciation, but at least they could not let the other party have a bad impression of the planet. The slightest carelessness. It was very possible that with a wave of the other party's hand, their entire planet would be destroyed. Father, do you have to? Behind these people, there was an arrogant young man curling his lips. He was the only son of this planet's ruler. Just now, he was having fun with his scoundrel friends. Suddenly being called over by his father made him feel a little uncomfortable. Who cares who he is? You guys have already given him enough face by coming to greet him. Why did you have to ask me to come as well? You know, I'm about to break through to the star rank, I need time. Shut up. The ruler raged. Don't think I don't know what you're doing. Breaking through to the star rank, you dare say that? I've hired so many teachers for you, spent so many resources for you. Even a pig would be a star by now. Yet you're still at domain level 9. Training, you're always fooling around with those scoundrel friends. Let me tell you, later on, you better be smart. Also, I'll give you 2 more months. If you can't break through by then, I'll let you join the army. Father! The young man was stunned. Let me tell you, the person in the battleship is at least a duke. Even if he isn't, he's definitely a member of the top families. Put away your little temper. In front of that lord, let alone you, even I have to treat him with caution. Do you understand? After scolding the young man, the planet commander turned back towards the docking area. During this time, his heart was filled with awe. When he was the same age as his son, he was already at the pinnacle of the star system and had a position in the army. It was the same. He retired after reaching the universe level and became the ruler of this planet. However, this son of his, he enjoyed resources that others couldn't. It's been 700 years, yet he's still at domain level 9. Who knows what he'll do in the future? Will he even be able to reach the universe level in his lifetime? Just as the planet commander was sighing, the docking area of the battleship opened its door. From the door, a cold and elegant lady walked out. Her appearance alone made one feel suffocated, a fear that came from the depths of one's soul. Everyone instinctively lowered their heads, no one dared to look her in the eye. At this time, the lady walked out of the cabin door, her lips curling up. Blue River Planet? This is Blue River Planet? It's really weak. Chapter 23:15. Who's in charge of the docking station? After a short whisper, the woman raised her head and spoke to the people around her. Sir, it's me. From the crowd, an old man with white hair walked out in a hurry. Don't underestimate this old man. Even though she looked old, she was a level 9 galactic system. In the entire Blue River Star, she was also one of the strongest. This was also due to the special nature of the docking station. The planet's docking station was the most prone to chaos. There were many people who didn't follow the rules of the planet. When these people appeared, the docking station had the authority to suppress them by force. This required a person of high strength to hold down the fort. But this old man's strength was not even worth mentioning in front of this woman. He could feel it himself. The difference in strength between this senior and him was like the difference between the bright moon and the fluorescent light. As long as this senior wanted to, she could crush him to death with a single finger. What orders do you have for me, senior? Senior? The woman squinted her eyes and sized up the old man. Do you think I'm old? No, 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 I don't think so. The old man shook his head hurriedly. He almost knelt down in front of the woman. Life and death could be decided in an instant. This was the absolute authority of absolute strength. If this woman made a move, he would have no chance of fighting back, let alone surviving. Don't worry, it's just a little joke. Just as the old man was sweating profusely, the woman squinted her eyes and patted the old man's shoulder. I'm older than you. Maybe a lot older than you, but I know how to take care of myself. Look at you, your hair is all white, and your face is full of wrinkles. Are these the marks of time on you? The old man lowered his head and didn't dare to speak. No one knew what this senior wanted to do or what he meant by his words. The more he said, the more mistakes he would make. It was better not to say anything. You people here are too reserved. The woman shook her head and pursed her lips. Seeing the old man's frightened expression, she didn't tease him anymore. How much is the docking fee? Senior, forget about the docking fee, it's free. Do you think I need your money? The woman squinted her eyes and took out a $10,000 coin from her pocket. Is it enough? Yes, yes, yes. 10,000 universe dollars. It had been here for hundreds of thousands of years. Didn't you just say that you would give me free food? The woman narrowed her eyes as she watched the old man take the money. In an instant, the old man's pupils contracted violently. He had had enough. He really couldn't stand this kind of exhausting state. Look at how scared you are. I already said that I was just joking. I am a person who likes to joke. Of course, sometimes it might not be a joke. With that, the old man knelt on the ground with a thump. Senior, did I do something wrong? No, you did very well. The woman shrugged. I just feel that you look a little like the guy I just killed not long ago. That guy didn't know what's good for him. He killed himself before I could even feel happy. Don't worry, I won't kill you. You're a level 9 nebula after all, the backbone of the human race. Although I don't have a good impression of the human race, I won't kill you. Who asked me to be part of the human race? With that, the woman twisted her neck. Take care of the battleship for me. Don't let me knock it. If it really does, I definitely won't let that happen. The old man patted his chest so hard that it made thumping sounds. Heya, it's fine. I don't care even if it knocks it. With a shrug, the woman really turned around and left. The old man kneeling on the ground was still tense, not daring to relax at all. The others around him, they all subconsciously made way for her. From the conversation between the woman and the old man, it could be seen that this senior was temperamental. The best way to treat this kind of person was to not speak carelessly. It was best not to come into contact with him, otherwise, if he were to get into trouble because of a certain sentence, it wouldn't be worth it. Just as the woman was about to leave, the planet's commander hurried over with his subordinates. Hello, Senior. This humble servant is Blue River's Star Master, Blue River. The planet's commander, Blue River, greeted the woman with a smile. He then pointed at his subordinates. They are all my subordinates. When I heard that Senior was visiting, Blue River came to greet you. Please forgive this junior for being late. This junior has already prepared a place for you to stay. Did someone say you were stupid? Suddenly, the woman coldly interrupted Blue River's words. Blue River's expression froze. After a short moment of hesitation, he lightly shook his head. This junior doesn't know. What are you here for? The woman narrowed her eyes. Do I know you? Do you know what I'm here for? Am I here to find you? You want to welcome me and prepare a place for me to stay. How could I have the time to do that with you? And you even prepared a place for me to stay. Do I need you? Blue River's cold sweat flowed down his face. He just wanted to let this senior feel Blue River's warmth towards her, but he didn't think. He actually made a mistake. I can see that this little planet of yours has never received any big shots before. Yes. Blue River nodded. No wonder. The woman nodded and immediately said, but this isn't a reason for you to make a mistake. To be honest, your appearance has made me a bit unhappy. Senior. Blue River gulped. This junior just wanted to. Your thoughts aren't important to me. The woman coldly looked at him. Her cold eyes made Blue River feel as if he had fallen into an abyss, or as if he was in a slaughterhouse. This senior. He was definitely a decisive senior. Her hands were definitely stained with blood. Forget it. I'm too lazy to argue with you. After about half a minute, the woman lightly sighed. Blue River felt as if he had been granted amnesty. Your intentions are good, but you have to use the right method. Sometimes, using too much force is a sin. This junior understands. Blue River nodded. Who is that kid? Suddenly, the woman looked towards Blue River's son. Then, she directly walked in front of him and placed her hand on his shoulder. Is it nice? Do you want me to show you a bit more? As soon as she finished speaking, the youth's body exploded into a bloody mist. A pitiful scream came from his mouth. The woman glanced at the bleeding area. Your son, right? Have another one. This son is already useless. Soon after, the woman suddenly disappeared from everyone's sight. Blue River silently watched this scene, but when he looked at his son, he didn't feel any pity. You're looking to die. On the way here, he had told him countless times. This was a great senior. He actually dared to look around. If this wasn't looking to die, then what was he doing? Take him down and treat his wounds. Blue River waved his hands towards his subordinate. The image of the woman leaving lingered in his mind. Spatial Rhythm, Venerable Level. Super Red Packet Group. Chapter 23:16. Blue River's hands were trembling. Even though he had made ample mental preparations, even considering the possibility of it being a king-rank senior. Who would have thought? The person who came was actually a venerable. The entire human population was in 1080 universe countries. Each universe country had thousands of galaxies, and within each galaxy were countless life planets. Each life planet had at least 4 billion humans living there, and at most billions. With such numbers, the number of sovereigns and lords didn't even reach 10,000. Don't think that there were only about 10 people in each universe country. This was the accumulation of the human race over countless years. A sovereign had actually come to Blue River Star. Thinking of what had just happened, Blue River Star couldn't help but feel fear. If that senior wasn't happy, he could have wiped Blue River Star off the face of human history with a wave of his hand. What was even more hateful was his son, vile spawn. The youth, whose family jewels had been destroyed, had already fainted from the pain, but Blue River's slap had woken him up. This slap had knocked out all of the youth's teeth, but Blue River was still angry. If it wasn't for his subordinates pulling him back, the youth might have died at his hands. He dared to disrespect even a sovereign. He wanted the entire clan to die with him. Father, Scram, I don't have a son like you. Blue River was furious. When your condition stabilizes, go join the army. Don't ever come back to Blue River Star. The youth didn't know why Blue River was so angry. He was the victim. Right now, he couldn't even feel his heart, and he still wanted Blue River to avenge him. But now, Father. Scram. As soon as he finished speaking, Blue River glared at him and left the dock. Perhaps the Venerable One was right. He really needed to consider raising another successor, while he still had the time and energy. What a small one. On the streets of Blue River Star, the woman who had come to Blue River Star on a battleship-class ship was walking aimlessly. If she told anyone else, they probably wouldn't believe her. In just this short half an hour, she had already seen most of the planet. It should be known that although the Blue River Star's rank was not very high among the life stars, its surface area was one of the largest among the surrounding galaxies. Even so, the woman still thought that this life star was small. It was also very dilapidated. From her point of view, this was still a fourth-grade planet. The strongest being on the planet was a warrior level. The rest of the universe levels and star system levels were pitifully few. She was not interested in such a planet. What are you doing here? The woman couldn't help but frown, as if coming here wasn't her original intention, and she didn't know why she had come here. Just then, a message suddenly appeared in the virtual network. The woman frowned and entered the virtual network with her consciousness. She looked at the note of the sender, future little brother. Interesting. Inexplicably, a smile appeared on the woman's lips. She was already very beautiful, but her cold aura made people not dare to approach her. When she smiled, it was as if the world had lost its color in that instant. All the men on the street stared at her in order to see her smile. Many people even bumped into the surrounding walls while walking. She was well aware of all of this, however. She did not pay attention to it. What she was more concerned about was the message from the virtual network. By phone, have you arrived? It seems like you're looking for this little brother. The woman pursed her lips meaningfully. Actually, she had been very curious about this future little brother in the virtual network since a long time ago, because she didn't have many friends in the virtual network to begin with. All of her friends were major powers in the universe. She knew all of it. This future. You left me in the Azura massacre grounds and snuck over to find a little man. You're really getting better and better. The woman squinted her eyes and muttered to herself, then replied in the virtual network. Ding, detected. Current network is already locked. Please enter password to unlock. It was a password of 13 numbers. Seeing that, the woman couldn't help but frown and twitch her mouth in annoyance. You're really careful. Unfortunately, isn't it easy for me to find someone? My little cutie, there's always a flaw. With that, the woman's consciousness covered the entire planet. She did not know what the sender looked like, however, she could rely on her intuition. All she had to do was lock onto a few targets, then test them a bit to determine who it was. Shouldn't I have sent it? Yi Zichen sat on the living room sofa with a hint of hesitation in his eyes. He didn't know why, but he couldn't help but send Bai Feng a message. After sending the message, he actually felt a bit of regret. When they parted ways in the land of elements, Bai Feng had warned him over and over again not to contact her. What's going on with her? Yi Zichen squinted his eyes worriedly. It had already been several months, but Bai Feng hadn't sent him a single message. Something couldn't have happened to her on the way, right? Just as he thought of that, Yi Zichen hurriedly gave up on the idea. Bai Feng was a sovereign. Very few people in the human universe could match up to her. What's more, she was the leader of the 4 cardinal god clans, the Fire God clan. Whether it was in terms of equipment or life-saving methods, she had countless resources. There was no way something could have happened to her. Little Phoenix was already at the cosmic system level. She needed to learn more about it. It shouldn't be a problem if he just asked her a bit, right? Yi Zichen looked into the room. It was still empty. There wasn't a single living person in the room. There were only a few guards standing guard outside. I'm all alone. I'm so lonely. Yi Zichen felt like he might as well go to the second universe. At least there were people there. As for his castle, Baer took Bai Yin out to play every day. Bai Yu studied hard. When Su Yun finally came, he spent every day in the arena. There was no sign of him at all. He clicked on the virtual network. After everyone stopped going to the second universe, the chat group became rather quiet. In truth, what Yi Zichen cared about the most was Bai Feng. Ever since she arrived with the time ferry, she hadn't shown her face at all. Yi Zichen really wanted to meet her, ask her some questions, but she just didn't come out. It was as if she'd evaporated into thin air. Be careful. All of a sudden, Yi Zichen, who was muttering about Bai Feng in the virtual network, received a message from her. There was no beginning or end. Just 2 simple words. What do you mean? Where have you been all this time? Why haven't you said anything? I have a lot of questions. Ding. Your message has been sent. The other party has rejected it. Blocked. Red Packet Server. Chapter 23:17. In a special space, this space was filled with the gears of a clock, arranged messily in the surroundings. At the center of these gears, a woman whose appearance was flawless was kneeling on the ground with a pale face. Her left arm had also become transparent, as if it was about to disappear. In front of her, it was a giant that was tens of thousands of feet tall, and its face could not be seen. The use of time is not for you to tamper with the future. This is my second warning to you. If there is a next time, you will lose your control over time. The giant's voice could not be distinguished as male or female. It gave people the feeling that he was an ancient god king who was carrying out his judgment on mortals. What did I do wrong? The woman kneeling on the ground had disheveled hair. Her pupils were also filled with the gears of time. He is my benefactor. He is not. The giant said, at least not now. You think of him as your benefactor. Everything is because you saw a future that belongs to you. That's right, I saw it. Did I break the rules? No. Then is there a problem with me thinking of him as my benefactor? There is. The giant's voice was emotionless. In this time, he is not your benefactor. As for whether he will be in the future, that is a matter for the future. The future cannot be changed. What you are doing now is changing the future. In other words, you are trying to overturn the entire future river of time. As the one who controls time, this is not allowed. Nonsense. The woman kneeling on the ground sneered. Yes or no, it is not for you to say. It is also not for you. The woman raised her head to look at the giant, her eyes filled with anger. Hearing that, the giant was startled. He did not refute the woman's words and replied noncommittally. Yes. If that is the case, what right do you have to control me? The woman on the ground struggled to stand, her entire body was on the verge of collapsing. What right do you have to enter my elemental land and break my river of time? You have made a mistake. I have not. In an instant, the woman was so enraged that she shouted hysterically. I have not done anything wrong. What right do you have to say that I have done anything wrong? I am the master of time. My decisions are the decisions of time, not yours. My decision is the future. My decision affects the future. What river of time? Time is in my hands. If I want it to exist, it will exist. If I don't want it to exist, it will disappear. The woman shouted with all her might. In the end, her voice was a little hoarse. She did not think that she was wrong. Whether it was in the past, present, or future, she did not think that she was wrong. She just did what she had to do. That was all. However, even though she followed her heart, she was punished twice. The first time, she was sealed in the elemental land for 3 months. The second time, she was forcefully broken into her elemental land and destroyed her river of time. Destroy time, it was also a fatal blow to her. At the moment when the river of time shattered, she was on the verge of death. Fortunately, this was a land of time elements, and there was enough time elements to heal her injuries. She also accelerated the time around her to increase her recovery efficiency. If not for that, she might not be able to recover even after thousands of years. In terms of rank, I, who control time, have a higher rank than you. What right do you have to invade my territory? Who gave you the right? Faced with her anger, the golden giant was still unmoved, as if he had no emotions. You made a mistake, so I have the right to punish you. I don't deny that some of your words are right. You are indeed time, time is you, and the future you think is the future. None of this is wrong. But you are not the only time. For a moment, the hysterical woman was stunned. You are only one of the many times, you are not the only one. If the time in this world is you, then everything you do is for me, and I have no right to interfere. Now, you are not. The decisions you've made are affecting the rest of time. Their futures are also changing. As the punishment hall, we can't ignore such vile behavior. You think you are right. The woman frowned. I never think I am right. The giant maintained the same tone and volume from start to finish. I do not know what is right or wrong. I do not know what is right or wrong. Decisions are made by others. My responsibility is to punish. As for the rest, it has nothing to do with me. I hope you can stop what you are doing now. This is my second warning to you. Your punishment is to seal the elemental land for 6 months. Please remain clear-headed and consider other people. If you do this again, we will take away your right to control time and banish you to the elemental path. As soon as it finished speaking, the giant slowly turned into nothingness. The woman clenched her fists. Can my river of time recover? Yes. The golden giant said, I am only stopping you from making mistakes, so I shattered your river of time. Soon, it will recover, and you will still control time in the universe. Then, if I become the only time, does that mean that everything I do is right? Yes. The golden giant nodded without any hesitation. Perhaps he did not understand the woman's meaning, or perhaps he did but did not interfere. His responsibility was to punish, and if someone made a mistake and disturbed the duties of others, he would appear. As for the rest, it was not within his jurisdiction. All right. Got it. As soon as she finished speaking, the woman silently walked towards the messy gears and put them into her arms bit by bit. This was the time left behind by the shattered river of time. She wanted to reassemble this time. Only with the complete river of time could she control time in the universe. Now as she had lost that ability. Without the ability to control time in the universe, she could not see the past and future. Moreover, the elemental land was sealed, so she had nowhere to go. The golden giant did not seem to leave, and looked at the woman's back for a long time. "I wish you success." She did not know what he meant by that. Was he referring to reassembling the river of time, or becoming the only person to control time? The woman smiled silently when she heard that. She thought she would turn around and thank him, but instead, she raised her middle finger at the golden giant. "There is no need for you to pretend. Heh, I know very well what I want to do." Red Envelope Supergroup. Chapter 23:18. What a thoughtless bastard! After the golden giant left, the master of the land of time sat on the ground and cursed. By now, she'd pretty much recovered from her injuries. The land of time had plenty of the element of time, and she'd been accelerating time for herself the entire time. Her severe injuries from the river of time's destruction no longer affected her. That was the benefit of controlling time. She could no longer log into the virtual network. The Virtual World Corporation had set up the network in known areas. Although many of the land of elements had already been discovered, she was still an undiscovered land of elements. I don't know if he can understand what I'm trying to say. The woman in front of her was none other than the woman who'd always wanted to stick to Yizichin and confess her love whenever she got the chance. She'd made two mistakes. Of course, it was those so-called Reapers who thought that she didn't think was a mistake. First, when she'd reversed the flow of time in the second universe and healed Bai Sei and Hua Jianro, she'd said something she wanted to say but wasn't allowed to. She'd said it. In the end, she'd been captured by the Reapers and locked up for 3 months. Then, just now, since she controlled time, she knew about the people Yizichin would come into contact with in the future. In truth, she'd already been very careful not to say anything too explicit. It wasn't that she was afraid of the Reapers, it was that she didn't want to talk about the future in too much detail. Doing so could very well change the future. There were some things she didn't want to be erased. The way she saw it, the message she'd just sent was at most a reminder between friends. She didn't know what she'd done wrong. Less than half a second after she'd sent the message, the Reapers had arrived. They'd shattered her river of time with a swing of their axes, then captured her and brought her back to the land of elements, where they'd sealed her. 6 months. It would definitely take 6 months. Her time acceleration wouldn't affect her punishment, unless she could reverse the flow of time in the entire world for 6 months. If she really had that ability, then she wouldn't have been injured by the Reapers. She could only stay here for the next 6 months. Everything in the outside world had nothing to do with her. They have no emotions, no thoughts, and are purely tools for execution. I really don't know what's the point of these guys living. Ruse Goffin muttered as she sat on the ground. The golden giant was the second Reaper she had encountered. This time, the one punishing her was not the same as before. Perhaps the level and number of mistakes she had made were different, so the strength of the Reaper would be different as well. This time, the Reaper Rouge and Face Powder did not have the slightest thought of resisting. He was truly powerful. It was far better than her, who controlled time. When this Reaper arrived, Rouge and Face Powder had already accelerated time for herself, buffing the Reaper with time delay and rewind. She sped up and retreated. Even so, the other party was still able to break through her time and shatter her Shijia Street Long River with a single swing of his axe. After that, he did not make any more moves. Perhaps he thought that there was no need for him to make a move. It was the same. That was why the conversation just now happened. Just like the last Reaper, Rouge and Face Powder managed to resist for a period of time. Even though he was sealed in the end, at least his river of time did not shatter. The difference in strength was very obvious. The only thing they had in common was that neither of them had nimble. Right. Rouge and Face Powder felt that this definition was very accurate. Everything they did was to follow the instincts given to them by their creator. They did not have the ability to think independently. They spoke without any feelings or emotions. It was the same for what they did, it was just that the latter was somewhat different from the former. He had said, "All the best. I don't need you to cheer for me. You're really asking for it. Do I need you to cheer me on? When I get out, I will kill all those elemental spirit. Not a single one will be left alive. At least if I am caught, there is an 80% chance that a scheming B*TCH or a green tea has reported me. Otherwise, I would not have been targeted. Don't let me catch you." Rouge and Face Powder gritted her teeth, twisting her neck and spitting fiercely. There were so many elemental spirits? Why did they have to target Rouge and Face Powder? Moreover, when Rouge and Face Powder first revealed the future, she wasn't captured immediately. It was only after 24 hours, which was a day, that the Reapers caught her. At that time, he was really chatting with his human friends. However, Rouge and Face Powder did not understand. Why did the Reaper's words seem to support the internal strife between the elemental spirits? It was not only this Reaper. The Reaper who had come here for the first time also mentioned something similar. He said that Rouge and Face Powder were not the only ones who could control time. If she wanted to tamper with time unscrupulously, she had to be the only one who could control time. Did they want to reduce the number of elemental spirits? If they really wanted to, they could just do it themselves. Rouge and Face Powder did not know the strength of others, but she felt that as long as the Reaper was willing to make a move, all the people in the universe who could control time would die. He definitely had this strength. Why didn't he do this, but encouraged internal strife? Of course, they did not directly say this, but from their words it was what they meant. Moreover, when Rouge and Face Powder asked the Reaper, he did not warn her. Instead, he confirmed it and encouraged it. There is a problem. Rouge and Face Powder squinted her eyes and pouted. She felt that this matter was not simple, but she did not care about this. The elemental spirits did not know each other. To put it in a funny way, the elemental spirits of the various universes were in a competitive relationship. This was because devouring the origin energy of the same elemental spirit could quickly increase their strength. Let me give a simple example. If a young elemental spirit devoured the origin energy of the Spirit King, then he would become the Spirit King. That's right. There was no loss of energy when the elemental spirits devoured each other. The quantity of devouring did not determine the level of strength. The quality was actually the most important. The quantity devoured was at most a strong origin energy. Therefore, there was a hunting and killing relationship between the elemental spirit. In an alliance, only the elemental spirits of this universe were considered colleagues and good friends. Of course, this did not include fire and water. Water and fire were the two main elements of heaven and earth. They were the two main elements of the 5 elements of heaven and earth. Neither of the fire and water of heaven and earth were interested in the other. It was good enough that they did not fight. There was no need to think about harmonious coexistence. Because their attributes clashed, there was naturally no way for them to cooperate with each other. Super Red Packet Group. Chapter 23:19. The elements of heaven and earth reinforced and restrained each other. Even so, the elemental spirits of the same universe could still coexist with each other, and the relationship between them was very harmonious. Only the fire and water elements of heaven and earth. These two elements were very important in both the 5 elements of heaven and the 5 elements of earth. However, their attributes clashed. It was more serious than any elemental conflict. In other words, if the sky fire and the earth fire met, the fire elements concocted by the 2 elemental spirits would clash with each other. It would be a good outcome if the 2 of them didn't fight each other until their heads bled. Therefore, among the 5 elements of heaven and earth, there was almost no contact between the 5 elements of heaven and the 5 elements of earth. Of course, other than water and fire, the other elemental spirits were on better terms with each other. The enmity between these elemental spirits. She didn't want to care about the rouge and makeup, and she was too lazy to care. What she wanted to do now was, he wanted to be the only one who could control time. As for whether there was any conspiracy behind this, if he could become the only person who could control time, then he would need all the elemental spirits that controlled time in the universe to die. At that time, her strength would be at its peak. Even if the Reapers appeared, they might not be a match for her. Conspiracy? In the face of absolute power, everything else was just an illusion. At that time, she would become the only person in the universe who could reveal spoilers at will. He could do whatever he wanted. Thinking about that feeling, Rouge and Face Powder felt like they were going to fly with joy. Of course. The premise was that she had the ability to do so, and she had to stay here for another 6 months. I heard that our time beauty has been locked up again. At this moment, a silvery white door suddenly opened in the void of the sealed time elemental land. The silver door opened. The one who appeared in front of Rouge and Face Powder was a woman with an equally breathtaking appearance. It's getting bigger again. Yenji, who was sitting on the ground, curled her lips. She glanced at the chest of the newcomer, and then at her own. What? Do you feel a little ashamed? The newcomer noticed Rouge's gaze and deliberately puffed out her chest, her eyes full of smiles. Heh, slut! Rouge and Face Powder muttered. Her voice wasn't soft, and the visitor heard it clearly. However, she wasn't unhappy at all. Instead, she shrugged her shoulders proudly. Jealousy can really change people beyond recognition. Look! Our time goddess is actually jealous of my beauty. As she spoke, she even deliberately covered her face and pretended to cry. Her fingers gently touched the corners of her eyes that were devoid of tears. Can't you just get lost? Rouge was furious. Aren't I here to see you? Seriously. The newcomer rolled his eyes. Look at how messed up you are. It looks like you fought with the Reapers. How is it? Is there a big difference? Can't you tell? That's true. The newcomer nodded. Even the river of time has been shattered. It seems he lost badly. Are you here to make sarcastic remarks? Rouge frowned. Of course not. As he spoke, he waved his hand lightly, and the messy land of time elements returned to its original position. What do you think? Exactly the same. Not bad. Rouge nodded. It seems that you are very suitable to be a housekeeper. You've really perfected your use of spatial energy in housekeeping. Get lost. The newcomer rolled his eyes. She was none other than the space elemental sprite that lived in the same universe as Rouge and Cosmetic Sprite and had mastered space. She spat on the Rouge and Face Powder. The space elemental fairy Yo-Yo also sat on the ground, pursing her lips and shrugging. Dabai and Dehei asked me to send their regards. I can't touch the two of them. They specifically asked me to ask you about the situation and if you need any help. The two of them are always spouting this bullshit. Rouge Shui's fan didn't appreciate it at all. If you really care about me, why don't you just come and help me kill that Reaper? What's the use of asking me if I need help now? My elemental lands are sealed, and the river of time is broken. When you get back, give them 2 kicks. Tell them you did it on my behalf. Okay. I like it. You nodded. I've always found them an eyesore. Rouge and Face Powder did not reply and sat on the ground, minding her own business and sulking. Soon after, she slowly opened her mouth again. Don't blame them. Ever since you were targeted by the inspectors, the few of us have also been targeted. Just now, when the Reaper came to your place, we wanted to come, but our elemental lands were also sealed. They're probably afraid that we'll come and help. Excuses. Rouge and Face Powder rolled her eyes. Who doesn't know that light and darkness are the strongest elements? The two of them have already reached the level of a spirit king. If they don't want to, I don't believe those guys can forcefully seal their elemental lands. And you can control space, so you can come out whenever you want. You guys just don't want to come and help. You're just brothers on the surface. Do you know how many Reapers went to light and darkness? How many? 7. You stretched out her hand. There are 7 Reapers standing outside each of their elemental land. The 2 of them have no way of fighting them head-on. You know, I'm good at running away, but I'm not good at fighting. They can't come, so it's pointless for me to come. 7. Rouge and Face Powder frowned. She really didn't expect that the inspectors would send over a dozen Reapers just for their universe. In order to seal herself, they really put in a lot of effort. You have to understand us, Yu said. I understand. Rouge and Face Powder curled her lip. If I'm really unhappy, I'll use time acceleration on you when you come and make you old. Wah, you're too vicious. Yu stared. I'm that vicious, I don't accept it. Rouge and Face Powder put her hands on her waist. Not long after, she suddenly put on an aggrieved expression, her eyes blinking as she looked at the space elemental spirit. Baby Yu? What are you doing? Yu subconsciously took a few steps back. She was sure that Rouge and Face Powder didn't have any good intentions. This kind of seal has no effect on you. That's right. Space elemental spirits controlled space. They had the highest authority to control space. Even if the inspectors came to seal it, their authority level wouldn't be as high as the space elemental spirits. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come to the time elemental land when space was sealed. She could come. This meant that this kind of seal was useless. Since that's the case, Rouge and Face Powder squinted her eyes. Why don't you sneak me out? Chapter 23:20. Silence. After Rouge Face Powder made this request, Yo-Yo didn't speak for a long time, as if she was under a silence aura. She was silent for half a minute. Do you want me to die? Yo-Yo's face was filled with fear. This expression was a stark contrast to Rouge Face Powder's innocence. I can't. Rouge Face Powder blinked. How is that possible? Yo-Yo glared. You're being monitored and sealed. If I bring you out, I'll be committing a crime. Wow, do you think I can take a hit from those Reapers? The Reapers were definitely one of the strongest. 4 elemental spirits. They didn't need to be afraid of human overlords because elemental spirits had a certain method to protect themselves. No matter what, an overlord was still a human and couldn't trap an elemental spirit. If a human wanted to obtain an elemental spirit, either the elemental spirit was still in its infancy and didn't have much resistance, or this possibility was very slim. Before the elemental spirit reached adulthood, there were many elemental guards in the elemental lands. These guards were very different from the warriors condensed from the element. These guards were companions of the elemental spirits and would leave on their own once they reached adulthood. As for where they went, no one knew. Even the elemental spirits themselves didn't know. There was another way to obtain an elemental spirit, which was to get the elemental spirit's approval. This possibility was even slimmer than capturing an elemental spirit in its infancy. Elemental spirits were proud. In their eyes, any race was inferior. It was harder to get their approval than to ascend to the heavens. But the Reapers were different. If elemental spirits were said to be the most outstanding existences in their own domain, then the Reapers were the existences slightly inferior to elemental spirits in all domains. Reapers. They came from the Elemental Supervision Bureau. They had the ability to control the heavens and could deploy all the elemental powers. This was also why an elemental spirit couldn't fight back when encountering a Reaper. If you were a time elemental spirit, he could seal your space. If you were a space elemental spirit, he could rewind time. Even if you had already teleported away, he could still rewind time to the point of the teleportation. Rouge Face Powder was under the supervision of the sealed space. As a space elemental spirit, Yo-Yo could take him away from the sealed space, but she was committing a crime. Her combat ability wasn't very strong. Meeting the Reapers, he could have killed her with a swing of the axe. Under normal circumstances, the space elemental sprites would not cause trouble. If they really did make a mistake, they would take the initiative to admit it. If they really could not handle it, they would run back and forth. Anyway, it was impossible for them to take the initiative to attack. Stop messing around with me. If I had the guts to run away with you, I would have gotten Black White to fight with them. Yu Yu's eyes were filled with terror. She really didn't know how Rouge dared to say such words. Did the Reapers beat you senseless? I'm Yu Yu. I'm a coward. You disappoint me. Rouge Goffin sat on the ground and frowned. Her eyes were filled with disappointment. We've been best friends for so long, but it seems like we're just plastic sisters. Do you still remember? Tears welled up in Rouge's eyes. That year there was a human who wanted to take you back as a concubine. Who was the one who dragged her entire family to save you? Aren't you embarrassed to say that? Yu Yu frowned. What's wrong? I wanted to go with him. You brought Black White to beat him up. After that, he didn't even dare to see me. Is that so? Rouge and Rouge smiled awkwardly before speaking in a righteous manner. Then last time, you were targeted by the space elemental spirit. Suddenly, Yu Yu thought of that incident. When she was traveling outside, she encountered the encirclement of other universe elemental spirits. Rouge saw it in the river of time. Then, she brought Black White and the heaven and earth elements to rescue her from prison. And last time, you went to the void. And you went to the outer realm. And the incidents that Rouge mentioned were all about the space elemental spirit encountering trouble, and she went to help. Yu Yu lowered her head. She knew that Rouge was right. But you aren't even helping me escape now. Rouge pretended to wipe away her tears, even though there wasn't a single tear in her eyes. I really can't take you out. Yu Yu pursed her lips. I know you're good to me, but you know, I really don't dare. See what else you need me to do. As long as it's something I can do, I won't hesitate. If there's no danger. The space elemental spirit displayed her fear to the extreme. She was afraid of death. This was something that everyone knew, and she wouldn't deliberately hide it. She believed that Rouge would definitely understand her. I understand you. You're afraid of death. Rouge let out a deep breath. But I'm really disappointed. How about this, you help me with a small matter. Okay, tell me. Find out the location of the other time elemental spirits for me in the next few months. Rouge narrowed her eyes. You don't need to investigate too deeply. You just need to help me find their location. As for the rest, leave it to me. From Rouge's point of view, Yu Yu was the most suitable person to investigate the location of the other time elemental spirit. She was a space elemental spirit. She was the most sensitive to space. It was definitely the most convenient for her to investigate. Yu Yu raised her eyebrows. You told me to investigate the other time elemental spirit. I already said that I can't be in danger. What if they catch me? There are several places where the space elemental spirits are more accomplished than I am. But aren't you the best at running away? Of course. Yu Yu smiled. Because she was afraid of death, her understanding of space was focused on escaping. That's why you won't die. Rouge and Face Powder spoke with certainty. I believe you. All right, then I'll help you find them. Yu Yu hesitated for a moment, then said, What do you want to find them for? Wei, don't do anything stupid. Don't worry, I won't. Rouge and Face Powder smiled at Yu Yu. I have something else to ask of you. What is it? Can you make a trip to Blue River Planet? You're a space elemental spirit, so you'll be able to get there quickly. Blue River Planet? Isn't that where Yi Zichen is? With that, Yu Yu glared at her. You can't be asking me to protect him, right? I don't dare. The Reaper Society. You don't need to do anything, Rouge frowned. I just need you to take him away when he's in danger. If he doesn't die in the future, even if you do anything, you'll be altering the future. Is that all right? Red Packet Server. Chapter 23-21. Yu Yu felt troubled. She actually didn't really agree with Rouge and Face Powder's explanation. It didn't matter if Yi Zichen survived or not. If she intervened when he was in danger, she'd already affected his future. She definitely wouldn't just let him be. What's more, he wouldn't die anyway. Why did she have to go herself? Even if he was in danger, Yi Zichen should have a way to deal with it. From Yu Yu's perspective, rouge and face powder were just too worried. She was too afraid that something would happen to Yi Zichen, so she wanted to help him as much as she could. Little did she know, she might be harming him by doing this. Yi Zichen clearly had great potential in the river of time in the future, as long as he wasn't affected. She acted so rashly. Did she even consider perhaps it was because she cared? Changed the future. Instead, Yi Zichen was trapped. At the very beginning, when rouge and face powder were sealed for the first time, Yu Yu had wanted to say these words to her. She'd considered rouge and face powder's thoughts. That's why she hadn't mentioned it. Was this what they meant by being too worried? She really was jealous. Her best friend had been abducted by a stinky man. Is it really worth it for Yi Zichen? Yu Yu truly didn't want to get involved. On one hand, she didn't want to be targeted by the Reapers. On the other hand, she didn't want to change the future. The butterfly effect. It was truly terrifying. Sometimes, even the smallest of details could affect the entire universe. Take rouge and face powder's first spoiler, for example. It was very possible that the future had already changed. That was how it was explained. If rouge and face powder hadn't spoiled her, then she was still free. She could still run to the human world without fear, and go to the so-called second universe as a human. She was still rouge and face powder, the Empress's leader. It was her spoiler that had sealed her. 3 months of no contact with Yi Zichen had even affected Yu Yu and the 2 elemental fairies, causing them to be targeted as well. The 3 of them had lost their freedom. Now rouge and face powder had spoiled her. Her river of time had been destroyed, black and white had been sealed in the elemental lands, and she had snuck out to comfort rouge and face powder. All of this, the source was actually the first spoiler of rouge and cosmetic powder. If it weren't for that spoiler, all of this wouldn't have happened. This was a chain reaction. The butterfly effect. And this was just what Yu Yu had seen and knew. There must be a lot more that she couldn't see or know. In this regard, the future had changed. Of course. Rouge Gofan nodded her head vigorously and bit her lips. His kindness to me is greater than anything else. I must repay him with everything I have. What did you see in the river of time? Half a year ago, rouge and makeup were still fine, but she, Yu Yu, Black White, and the rest were doing whatever they wanted in the universe, pretending to be a tyrant. Not long ago, she suddenly said that she wanted to go to the second universe and get to know that person called Yi Zichen. She even said that he was her Mr. Right. Let Black White and Yu Yu follow. They bought anonymous helmets, entered the second universe, and saw that Yi Zichen, seriously. In Yu Yu's eyes, it was very ordinary. She didn't think that this fellow was outstanding or worthy of others' attention. This guy seemed to have a few elemental spirits on him. Enslaved elemental spirit. This caused her, who was an elemental spirit, to have an even worse impression of Yi Zichen. Yet Weiwei or Rouge Gofan just liked him. She liked him a lot. According to what she said, she saw her future in the river of time. In this future of hers, everything was inextricably linked to Yi Zichen. Just what did she see? She wouldn't say no matter who asked. Hey, don't worry about it. Rouge Gofan pursed her lips and blushed. Rouge pursed her lips and blushed. No matter what, Yi Zichen is very important to me. If he dies, then I don't want to live anymore. Yu Yu was speechless. At that moment, she was starting to doubt whether or not the guy in front of her was her best friend. From what she remembered, her bestie really hated men. She would yell about bad guys every day, saying that anyone who dared to come into contact with men was evil beyond redemption. But now, did it have to be so exaggerated? He wanted to die, he wanted to live. Yu Yu. Rouge Gofan grabbed Yu Yu's arm and shook it with a pitiful expression. All right, I'll go. When she saw Rouge Gofan's pitiful look, Yu Yu couldn't help but sigh. Rouge Gofan had helped her so much. No matter what, she couldn't refuse, even if it might anger the enforcers. I'll say the ugly things first. I'll only act when he's truly about to die. If he can deal with it, I won't care. Alright. Ruse Gofan nodded without hesitation. She was already satisfied that she could do this much. Then stay here and don't mess around anymore. This time, it was your river of time that was destroyed. I don't know what's going to happen next time, said Yu, seemingly distressed. I don't want to lose a good friend like you. Don't worry. Ruse Gofan smiled, then urged, hurry up and go. Help me keep a close eye on Yizichin. Don't let anything happen to him. Yes. Yu shrugged. Then what do we do with the time elemental spirits? Just keep an eye on him for 10 days. Alright. No matter what, Yizichin had no idea that he was involved with 2 elemental spirits. He was still looking at Rouge Gofan's message window in confusion. Reject. She actually blacklisted him. Just what does Rouge Gofan want? For some reason, she sent him a message telling him to be careful and then blacklisted him without saying anything. Is this a warning from Rouge and Rouge? Yizichin quickly realized the abnormality of her words. After all, Rouge Gofan was suspected to possess a time elemental spirit. Anything she said was worth pondering. Be careful? Is she warning me that I'll encounter danger later? Just where is this danger coming from? Yizichin frowned. He didn't know what was going on. Anyway, I just have to be careful. As long as I'm careful about everything, I can definitely avoid problems in advance. Just as Yizichin was racking his brains, a beautiful figure suddenly appeared in front of him. The figure descended from the sky. When she landed in front of him, he saw her smile. Future lackey?